better one. I'm going to show you my better one. I think you.
Okay, commissioners, we can hear you. Can you hear us? Commissioners, could you hear us?
Okay. Yes.
Oh, great. And we
can hear
you.
Yes, you can hear us. We can hear, or you can hear us too.
Yes. Excellent.
I'll get it right yet. Okay. Okay. So I'm ready to start then.
Yes, we are.
Okay. All right. I would like to call to order the 2021 supplemental budget hearing for the Ramsey County Board of Commissioners. And I will begin by making a few statements so that people that are watching can understand what's going on and what to expect from here on out. So just to let everyone know, we as a board approved a budget for 2021 on December 17th, 2019 as part of the 2020-2021 biennial budget. Try saying that a few times. At that time, the 2021 budget called for a spending increase of $21.4 million over 2020 and a 4.5% property tax increase. Typically, during the second year of the biennial budget, the county board affirms the budget approved from the previous year and focuses the second year on performance measures and progress made towards the county goals adopted by the board. However, as we all know, this isn't a typical year. So given the pandemic, significant economic downturn, and civil unrest, all of which have impacted our community, we needed to take a new look at the 2021 budget. The proposed budget, supplemental 2021 budget, calls for a spending increase of $5.8 million over 2020 and holds the levy change at 0.0% between 2020 and 2021, which was a very big feat for our, for the county staff to pull together. On August 25th, okay, sorry, I just had a bug across here, so I'm just trying to get things straightened out here. Okay, real life here. Okay, on August 25th, 2020, the county manager recommended a 2021 supplemental budget to the Ramsey County Board. Meetings with the service teams on the supplemental budget changes and performance and measures started September 1st and go through September 10th. For those wanting to see the schedule online, please go to www.ramseycounty.us/budget. The deputy county manager of each service team will provide an overview of the service team when we're coming up on the first one this morning, and the 2021 impacts on the proposed budget, service delivery, and an update on its strategic priorities. So we will still be doing the measurements. The controller will follow with major changes in the proposed budget, and each department director will present their performance measures and speak to any specific departmental budget impacts on the service delivery. After each presentation, I will open the floor for questions and discussion by the county board. On Thursday, September 10th, a week from today, we will have the first public hearing on the 2021 budget. The meeting will be held at 10:30 a.m. in the council chambers with commissioners appearing virtually via Zoom, just as we are today. We acknowledge that the pandemic limits in-person opportunities, so we will be making accommodations to the extent possible for residents to provide comments through electronic or non-contact means. If you'd like to speak to the board, you can call the chief clerk at 651-266-8014. Email comments to chiefclerk, all one word, at co.ramsey.mn.us, or you can sign up in person at the meeting. On September 15th, the board will set the 2021 maximum property tax levy. The second public hearing will be held on November 30th at 6:30 p.m. at a location to be determined. Given the pandemic, we are currently looking at various facility and technology options to conduct this public hearing in person as well as virtually. On December 1st, the Budget Committee will discuss changes to the 2021 budget if there are any requested by board members. And on September 15th, the County Board will give final approval to the 2021 budget, including any changes approved by the committee, and set the final 2021 property tax levy. I'd like to thank Vice Chairperson, Commissioner Matas Castillo, the County Manager, Ryan O'Connor, CFO, Alex Kutzi, and all the staff that are involved. Again, this was a joint effort, and I commend all. I will also remind you about the fact that all of this information is on the Ramsey County Open Data Portal. So you can go into depth into every part of our budget and what we do. We strive to be as transparent as possible and want as much input as possible. And finally, I will say again, as co-chair of the 2020 Census Committee for St. Paul and Ramsey County, if you haven't already completed the census, please go to my2020census.gov. So with that, we will kick off today's presentation. The first for this morning, we're going to be working with the Economic Growth and Community Investment Team. And I will turn to Joanna Berg, the Deputy County Manager for EGCI overview. And hopefully the technology is all working here. And I would just simply ask that if you're not talking, that you put yourself on mute.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I'm pleased to be here this morning to provide an overview of EGCI's 2021 supplemental budget and performance measures. As you know, this supplemental budget year is when we traditionally focus on performance measures, so I'm going to begin there this morning. Last year, EGCI implemented its Performance Measures Action Team, or PMAT, led by Brian Isaacson of Public Works, who is joining us at the table this morning. In addition to Brian, I want to highlight the other members of the EGCI PMAT team. Josh Olson from Community and Economic Development, Jeff Ide from the Library, Scott Yankee from Parks and Recreation, Gary Marachek from Property Management, and Larry Timmerman from Workforce Solutions. My thanks to this team and to Joe Lee Wood with Policy and Planning for all of their work on EGCI performance measures this year. As Policy and Planning Director Elizabeth Tolsman referenced last week, this was necessarily an abbreviated process this year, but I think also that it was a particularly impressive body of work given the unusually competing pressures and priorities. Department heads will be highlighting some of their performance measures for you within their presentations this morning. On the budget side, the County Manager's proposed budget presented on August 25th included an overall operating budget reduction from service teams. EGCI's share of that reduction was a little over $1.3 million. Given the profound impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on our economy and on our county's workforce, I held both Community and Economic Development and Workforce Solutions harmless from this budget reduction process. EGCI's share of the reduction target was evenly apportioned across the Library, Parks and Recreation, Property Management, and Public Works. And George Hartgrove, EGCI's Controller, will follow me this morning to highlight the major changes within our proposed budget. The County Manager also spoke to anticipated changes to the capital budget last week. To meet our community's critical need for affordable housing, we are reprioritizing within the capital budget to provide $8.9 million in an affordable housing investment project by shifting the Ramsey County Library renovation project to the library operating fund balance and delaying approved golf course capital projects within Parks and Recreation. Prioritization decisions are never easy, particularly across the breadth of the services provided in this service team. But I am confident we are presenting to you today the best possible proposed budget, fully aligned with our mission, vision, goals, and values, and with a singular residents-first focus. My thanks to George Hargrove, the EGCI budget team, and to our CFO and her team for the strong and collaborative work that went into building this budget. And we continue to evolve. In July, this board endorsed the County Manager's recommendation to establish a new Housing Stability Office within the EGCI service team beginning in January 2021. Health and Wellness Service Team Interim Deputy County Manager Karen Saltis and I are partnering in leading this project. which builds on the plan to establish this office as introduced within the 2020-2021 biennial budget and carries forward the excellent planning and community engagement efforts of our organization from concept to reality. We have necessarily deprioritized many things this year, but one of the high priority EGCI initiatives we were able to resume this summer is our Purchasing and Contracting Action Team, or PCAT, led by Ling Becker of Workforce Solutions and Ryan Reese from Parks and Recreation. The EGCI PCAT is moving forward the contracting and workforce inclusion action items we discussed with you back in a January board workshop, including piloting the debundling of construction contracts, implementing needed software to track spend and ensure transparency, and deepening our community engagement efforts. In addition to highlighting performance measures this morning, each of our department heads will speak to the impact of COVID-19 on their departments and service delivery. I have previously described these leaders to you as bright, dedicated, transformational, and these all remain apt descriptors. But if I had just one word to describe them and myself today, it might be exhausted. I say this in great admiration of the challenges we have met this year and the transformational opportunities we have advanced and continue to advance, and because I believe it is really important we keep in front of us what we have asked and continue to ask of dedicated public servants across this organization. These leaders have wholly redesigned their resident-facing service delivery and back-office operations. They have ideated, designed, and delivered millions of dollars in new workforce assistance and small business supports for our residents and for our community. They have directly staffed and supported the incident command structure, kept other high-priority work moving forward, and not incidentally, supported me, each other, and their staff through adversity and uncertainty. COVID-19 served to highlight both our capacity and perhaps the limits of our capacity. Today, we will note a few edits in the budget book through the presentation. This year has been unlike any other. The strategic team has had significant leadership and staff transitions. We've been in a state of emergency since March, and the time frame for making adjustments to the supplemental budget was condensed. We apologize for the discrepancies and will highlight the corrections today. I want to underscore that overall, none of these corrections impact the dollar amounts or total full-time equivalents, and all of the financial records are accurate. I thank you for your continued understanding that we are nowhere near operating in a business-as-usual environment, that our need to make prioritization decisions will continue, that some work is moving more slowly than we had initially planned, and that tired and overstretched people make mistakes. And most importantly, that you know every day we continue to bring our individual and our collective best forward in service to our residents. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to take any questions.
I think we will, well, let's see. Do I have any? I don't have anything in the I don't know what that's called, the participant list. Anyhow, and there may be questions after when you do the conclusion.
Thank you. Then I will welcome George Hardgrove, EGCI Controller, up to the dais.
Good morning,
Welcome.
Good morning, Chair Reinhardt, Commissioners. It's good to see you today. I'm George Hargrove. I'm the controller for the EGCI service team. The first thing I wanted to do is just cover a couple of minor corrections from your budget book. So if you turn to your budget book on page 73, there's an org chart for the Parks Department. And in the org chart, if you look on the top right-hand corner, you'll see the 2020-2021 approved FTEs of 96.36, and that number is correct. Unfortunately, the detail adds up to 2 less than that, so I just want to correct the detail, and this would be for both 2020 and 2021. So for administration, 12 FTEs should be 11 FTEs instead for both 2020 and 2021. That's on the far left of the org chart on page 73. And then for arena operations, they should have 30.5 FTEs for both years. That's right in the middle. And then on the right side, for planning and development, that should have 6 FTEs rather than 4 for both years. So that, like I say, a real minor correction in the detail, but just wanted to make sure it adds up to the total. And then on the other correction we have on page 94, that's for workforce solutions. On that page, we have on the top right-hand corner, you'll see approved FTEs for 2020 and 2021 of 80. It's actually 79. We did transfer 4 FTEs in the budget process last year to other areas of the service team. So the correction in the detail
Excuse
then.
me, what page is that on?
Oh, 94, page 94.
Okay.
So yeah, the top right-hand corner, it should be 79 FTEs instead of 80. And then in the detail, under adult and dislocated workers, that should be 7.25 FTEs for both years, 2020 and 2021. So like I say, just a couple minor corrections on the org charts there. Otherwise, yeah, I'd like to cover the major changes. Before I do that, I did want to talk a little bit about some of the unique, I'd say what's kind of unique financially about the financial structure of a EGCI service team. Unlike a lot of the departments, we really have a lower amount of levy, so we're not quite as exposed to levy changes maybe as some of the other departments. Unfortunately, though, there's a double-edged sword to that, in that we have a variety of revenue sources, which unfortunately some of them are quite tied to the economy and are suffering a little bit right now under the COVID-19 pandemic. So there's 3 sources that we're watching very closely right now. One is the gas tax, which also includes new vehicle registration, new vehicle sales tax and registrations. We've heard from MDOT to expect a 15% decline in that, which would take effect around November, December of this year. So that affects both our operating and capital budgets. I believe we will be coming back later on this year with an RBA on the capital budget, and I'll talk a little bit about that too. The other thing we're watching very closely is the transportation sales tax. That's a 0.5% sales tax that's levied for transit projects. Unfortunately, we started the year quite well on that, but the second quarter we took a pretty big hit. It was down about 17–18% from the 2019 collections. So we're watching that very closely, and we plan on coming back in November to in a board workshop to talk about that as well too, and the effect on the transit project portfolio. Then the last thing too we're watching closely is the parks revenue, particularly the arenas and the waterworks. That's down quite a bit. We haven't adjusted the budget in 21 in hopes that the pandemic will subside, but as we get closer to 2021, it does unfortunately affect our revenue as well too. And of course, the last concern we have is the CARES funding. We have a couple of departments that are quite dependent on Workforce Solutions and Community and Economic Development, and of course that's scheduled to end at the end of December. So we'll have to see what happens when that ends. Otherwise, just to talk about the Public Works budget changes. Yes, we had to absorb the levy reductions that Joanna talked about. We had to reduce the payroll budget by about $200,000 in the regular Public Works department. We also reduced in the fleet department the payroll budget by about $91,000, so that's about 3 or 4 FTEs. In fleet, we also reduced the capital equipment budget by $142,000, both to save on levy and also because of a expected revenue decline there as well too. And then getting back to the gas tax, we do expect the operations portion of the gas tax to go down about $1.2 million next year. And so what we did is we shifted $1.2 million in the wheelage tax, which is pretty stable, into the operating budget. So like I said, we'll have to come back later this year and talk about the capital budget and where we'll take the wheelage tax out of that. In addition, we also expect the direct capital appropriations to go down about $2 million or so for next year. So we'll come back later on that. For parks, their share of the levy reductions was all cut out of personnel, about $330,000. That included 3 FTEs plus some temporary park service coordinators and lifeguards. We also made an adjustment not related to the pandemic to put the TCO sports garden budget into parks, and so that increased revenue expenses by about $200,000. For the library, we've made the decision, or we feel that we should continue to not levy the adult fines. We eliminated the youth fines last year. Now it's been extended to adults, so that reduced our revenue by $190,000 for 2021. That'll be covered by fund balance. We also reduced, for their levy cut, the personnel budget by $167,000, of which we funded that from fund balance, and we also put in another $166,000, or I should say we cut the budget by $167,000 and then put in another $166,000 from the fund balance to make them to help the library absorb their $332,000 cut. Property management, even though they're not directly funded too much by levy, they did decrease their rent charges by $333,000, and that's to the whole county. And then we went around to the whole county, to everyone that was paying rent, and reduced, since their rental fees for their space went down by that amount, we also reduced the levy amounts in all the departments that rent space from property management. And then lastly, for Workforce Solutions, as Joanna said, they didn't take a levy cut, but they do have a issue where we do need to fund what's called the gift card inventory. And that's so what we did is we increased a one-time increase of $300,000 to cover gift cards. And gift cards are used for client support services. And they originally were funded by federal dollars, and then the federal government did come back to us and say, you have to use county money. We can only reimburse you for the cards when when you actually give them to clients. So it's like I say, it's just a one-time budget increase of $300,000. It's not something that will occur every year, but it's basically working capital to cover our gift card inventory, which we think will be about $300,000 or so. And lastly, there was no changes at all to Community and Economic Development's budget. Please let me know if any questions, comments, or anything else.
One question that I have is, you talked about FTEs in parks, and I think in other areas as well, that were eliminated. My understanding was that we didn't have any layoffs, however. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is accurate. Yeah, they're going to be covered by vacancies, either ones we have right now or ones we expect to get in 2021 through attrition.
Yes, and I know that that's a common theme throughout our budget this year is the vacancy factor, and having something that's realistic and doable, yet deeper than what is normally expected. So. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that's what I understood, and I'm sure the other commissioners did as well, but I wanted to make sure that folks that were listening understood that there were no layoffs in this. Trying to do more with less, I guess.
Yes, yeah. No, you're correct, Commissioner Reinhardt.
Okay. Then, are there any questions from commissioners? Okay. Seeing none, we will, by the way, for the commissioners, let's see, George covered the major changes. That was on pages 66 and 67. And next we have Public Works with Ted Schoenecker, the Director of Public Works. His budget, or the budget for Public Works, can be found on pages 69 to 71. Welcome, Ted.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. As the Chair mentioned, the Public Works Information Department overview is on page 69 to 71 of your supplemental budget books. Again, my name is Ted Schoenecker. I'm the Ramsey County Public Works Director and County Engineer. What I'd like to do just before we get into this is acknowledge Brian Isaacson, who's up at the table here. Brian led the Performance Management Action Team. He was the chair of that. And then also our point person for Public Works. So a lot of what you see in here was really led by Brian and working with our team and the other departments across the service team. The last time EGCI was in front of you presenting our budgets, Deputy County Manager Berg described the directors as basically a bunch of Labrador puppies, and each of the directors seemed to come away with some sort of spirit animal for their department. I don't recall what Public Works' spirit animal was at that time, but on any given day it can range from a monkey to a turtle to a bulldog to a donkey to an eagle. So I guess we'll see what today brings for all of us. So we have 3 performance measures highlighted in the work that we are doing. Pavement quality index, or the pavement condition, percent of funds spent on multimodal features, and the average crash rate on the county roads system. The strength of these measures is that an investment in any one of these can have a positive impact on the other 2 also. I'm going to highlight each of them individually here and talk about them a little bit. First one is pavement. Pavement is the Public Works Department's and maybe even the county's largest asset. Pavement quality is not sexy, it's not romanticized, it's not talked about fondly, but it is something that our residents look to, and they actually compare it to their quality of life. We've heard the comments. It's like living in a third world country. It's like driving on the moon, through the craters of the moon. Across the whole county, the average pavement quality index is 61.2. This puts us in the fair category of pavement. And if we look at the categories kind of as they're broken down, there's excellent, good, fair, poor, very poor, and then, oh my gosh, I think I'm driving on a dirt gravel road. That average is consistent across all zip codes in the county, so the place in which you live is on average no better or no worse than any other location in the county. So if you are in St. Paul and you are in a zip code in St. Paul, the average pavement quality index in a zip code in St. Paul is the same or similar as the pavement quality index in something in Shoreview or in our suburban counties or suburban cities. Next performance measure, the percent of funds spent on multimodal features, gets right at the county's All Abilities Transportation Network policy. This is a measure that highlights the county's commitment to improving our transportation network for people who walk and bike. Our goal is 15 to 18% of our construction dollars spent year in and year out. We are better than our peers in this space right now as we compare our percent of spending on multimodal features compared to our other county counterparts and MnDOT Metro District. The last measure is the average crash rate on the county road system. Our last 2 presentations in our 5-year transportation improvement program stressed safety improvements on our county roads. If you remember, we are number 1, but we are not number 1 in a good way. We have the highest crash rates for counties across the whole state. We are digging deeper into the data to know where our problem corridors or intersections are and who they are most impacting. Rice Street in St. Paul is a good example of this. It has a crash rate that's 3 to 4 times higher than the statewide average for a similar roadway. It wasn't until we started the Rice Street visioning study and brought on a consultant to look at this that we knew the true magnitude of the issues in this corridor. We are also focusing on systematic changes to our system that we know have a positive effect on improving safety. Our conversion of 4-lane undivided roadways to 3-lane roadways and adding pedestrian meetings at key crossings is a good example of this. By tackling some of our most problematic locations and making system-wide changes, we know we can move the needle in the right direction for us. As I mentioned earlier, when we make an investment in one of these, it can provide a benefit to the other 2. McKnight Road is a good example of this. We are currently doing a pavement preservation program, microsurfacing and mill and overlay, from Lower Afton Road to 7th Avenue East in St. Paul, Maplewood, and North St. Paul. We are doing this work while in addition to getting nice new pavement surface, which we had traditionally focused on, we are replacing old traffic signals with accessible pedestrian signals, adding ADA compliant pedestrian ramps, adding pedestrian median refugees, and restriping the road to 3 lanes. Pavement, check. Multimodal, check. Safety, check. All of this comes under the umbrella of effective community engagement and reaching deeper into the communities in which these projects are located to make sure that we are getting to the racially and culturally diverse populations and connecting as best as we can with those individuals that are typically not represented in these projects. COVID has thrown a wrench into our community engagement efforts, but we are adapting. And the Wright Street Visioning Project is a good example of this. Much like the county's use of trusted messengers, this project incorporates community liaisons as part of the community engagement efforts. They are representatives of and from the community that are part of our team in connecting with the community. Instead of in-person events, we have moved to online activities, including short videos. Engineers don't like doing videos. We don't like being on camera, but they are doing it, and they're being thoughtful of it and stepping into that. The short videos, online surveys, interactive maps, etc. We have seen a positive increase in the number of responses that we are getting from residents on these projects. In addition, above and beyond what we would typically get in a traditional open house type of community engagement. And as things change in this pandemic, we will continue to change with it. As Controller Hargrove mentioned earlier, COVID will have a very big impact on our capital program in the next couple of years. We are anticipating a 15% reduction in our county state aid highway revenues in 2021. This is about a $3 million. For reference, this equates to approximately 6 fewer miles of a mill and overlay work. 6 miles. This means that some projects will be moving out into further years of our 5-year transportation improvement program, and that fewer projects will be delivered that help move our performance measures in a positive direction. The last thing I would like to highlight is the collaboration and partnership that is needed and that is occurring between departments, within the community, and through trusted community messengers, and this will continue to be a critical to our ability to deliver a top-notch transportation system that reflects the community's needs and values. Thank you for your time, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, first I will go to Commissioner McGuire and then Commissioner Matas-Castillo.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Director Schenecker. This is it's such important work that you do, as you know, and I think it was one of the most surprising things when I came to the county was all of the questions that you get asked about roads, all of the concerns. So we know that the work that you do is severely impacts our residents. So I have a couple of questions about that, but before I start, I just want to thank you for the efforts that you're doing around Rice and Larpenteur, and that is disturbing news about the crash. I mean, we know that about the crash statistics there, so I'm really grateful for all the work that we're doing there. And I might just add that that's an intersection that includes the city of Maplewood too, Maplewood and Roseville and St. Paul. So it's a great project, and I'm just thankful for all the work that our county is doing in that area. I have a question about the pavement quality, and we all get questions, and I'm not unique in that. I hear from residents, and the last one I heard, he said, when are you going to fix that stretch of road on Lexington? My teeth are rattling as I drive by it. And so, you know, we know that residents are impacted by the quality of our roads. So can you just help give us a little sense of how are those decisions made? You know that I'm going to be advocating for the roads that most needed in my area, as are all of us going to be advocating for that. And you said we're equally distributed with roads in need around our county. And so I think residents want to know, why is my road not getting fixed? And we get it that with COVID, we have less ability, less revenue coming in to do some of this. But can you give us a sense of, you know, when will these decisions be made? I think you're going to be coming to us with our transportation improvement plan, our roads projects, but could you talk a little bit about how our residents, you know, when they can expect decisions to be made and how they can impact, you know, how getting their roads near them fixed?
Sure. Madam Chair, Commissioner McGuire, that's a great question. More a little bit into the details. Every 2 years, we have a pavement van that goes out and drives all of our roads, and through that, the technology included in that pavement van, it gives us a condition rating of every road. And we take that back and we look at that information, and then we bring that into our other priorities. Are there other areas where we know that there's significant safety issues? Or do we know where there's pedestrian bike accommodations that we need to incorporate? Are there other infrastructure items? So storm sewer, storm water, retaining walls, fences, guardrails, signals, those types of things. And so we bring it back in and we look at kind of the holistic picture of it. And one of the things that is challenging, I'll say, with the public is they compare road to road. And they say, well, my road is worse than so-and-so's road, and why are you fixing that road and not my road? And part of it is that if we continue to chase the worst roads, we don't get out in front of our system. It's kind of like your roof. If you wait until your roof is completely failing, or let's say your walls or whatever it is, and you don't do that regular maintenance, you continue to put more money into the worst parts of your program and you never get out in front of it. So that is something that we are changing here and looking more at the life cycle of roads and finding those right times to make an improvement to a road that, I'll say, visually or driving may not feel as bad, but we know it's the right time to make that investment. We also have a consultant help us assess those types of improvements. Another thing that we are changing and looking at is the type of improvements that we're doing. And so traditionally, we've had kind of three methods that we've looked at when we want to do a better pavement program. We've either looked at a full reconstruction, where we tear up the whole road and we go for everything, or we do a mill and overlay, which is kind of taking the first 2 to 3 inches, or we do what we call a full depth reclamation, where you take all of the pavement, you churn it up, you put some of it back down, and then you put a new layer on top of it. We're looking at the new strategies that are out there. So some of you may have seen an email regarding microsurfacing. So a road that's not in bad condition, but we do a microsurface on it now to extend that life longer, but we don't have that significant investment that we need to make compared to a mill and overlay or a full depth reclamation. So we are adjusting our program right now to kind of bring those other elements into it. And so there probably isn't a really good answer to a resident to say, this is where your road is going to fit in. This is when your road is going to be done. And partly is it does change from year to year, but that's another thing that we are working with our communities on and our city partners on is getting out in front of the program to have at least a 2-year look ahead, so that it's not a year-by-year reactionary look at what happens with the pavement. And so at least from that standpoint, if we're 2 years out, it's a better communication tool for you and for the public to know I'm at least in 2 years. And then as we get that program established, then we'll start moving that out to a 5-year look, kind of that 3-4 years out beyond those 2 years, where we have a series of roads that we're looking at that we know are kind of coming up that are going to need a fix, but we don't know exactly which ones we're going to pick yet. And that will help influence kind of, I shouldn't say influence, help communicate again with the public on where they're going to fit into the program.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Director Schenecker. I know that we're all hearing from people, and we'll just keep advocating for our areas. I know that we'll keep bringing those to your attention, and I believe they're already on your radar. I know that they are, but we'll just keep making sure that they're in the mix there, and that that they're on the radar for getting done. So I appreciate your work in that and your explanation for that. I have another question. This may be for you or maybe for Brian Isaacson, but I'm grateful for the fact that Active Living Ramsey Communities is now a part of Public Works. It crosses 2 service areas of health and wellness and Public Works, and I think there's other areas that do this. But if you could talk a little bit about the, how we're making sure that that's happening, that when an effort like Active Living, which we all support, and it's for the public watching, it's about having accessibility, mobility for all, and it's about, our trails, our biking and walking, and our accessibility issues. How are we making sure that we're connecting with health and wellness in that case, and making sure that we're working together across service teams?
Absolutely. Madam Chair, Commissioner, again. I think this gets back to the All Abilities Transportation Network and really focusing on those efforts in improving and growing our connections and mobility for people who bike and walk. And by moving active living underneath Public Works and having it part of our multimodal planning group, I think that really highlighted that work a lot. With the recent retirement of Joe Lux, who most of you know and all of you know, we are going to be moving forward with filling his role and bringing in a transportation planner. And the focus of that person, that individual coming in, Brian Isaacson and I have been talking about it, is really having somebody bring in strong traditional planning roots and expertise, and starting to develop our ped and bike plan. And then working with public health, working with parks, working with and across our service team and into other service teams to kind of facilitate those types of discussions, and so that we are getting out ahead of projects, I'll say, and we're not doing planning in the middle of a project. So that's probably that area that we're going to grow that the most, probably in the next coming year or two.
And thank you so much for that. I know that the public really does care about that. And I think now in the days of COVID, people are biking and walking even more. And so I really appreciate that. And they really are reliant on the All Abilities Transportation Network. So thank you. Thank you for that work. And then my final question, Madam Chair, if I could, is about your online. We're doing a lot more, obviously, virtually with our community engagement. And you said that the numbers are good. Have we heard from more people because of our virtual engagement efforts? I know we don't ever want to give up our in-person ones, and we'll get back to that when we can. But I'm encouraged by the fact that we're able to hear from people that may have transportation or childcare issues or whatever. So if you could just talk a little bit about how we will probably continue with some of the virtual hearings when it involves people that have, challenges with actually getting to a physical meeting.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Commissioners, I think what this is teaching us is that we need to have a diverse portfolio in how we approach community engagement. Every community, every area is going to be a little bit different. Getting back to the numbers, I don't say I have specific numbers, but just in me going out and looking at our projects and seeing, I'll say, the comments on the interactive maps and the survey responses, it feels like we are getting a lot of response from a lot of people versus having like I said, more of a traditional open house or having a community event that we're participating in and just getting people walking up to. Once we get out of COVID and once we get back into whatever normal is going to be, our portfolio of how we're going to approach community engagement will include in-person, because we know that is still affected. We know that that is more effective in certain communities than in others. And so each project is going to be a little bit different in how we approach it.
Thank you. Thank you for that, and for your obviously openness and flexibility, which is I know is going to be happening throughout the county. So thank you for all of your work. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Before I go on to Commissioner Matas-Castillo, I would like to point out also that on the Ramsey County website, there's an opportunity for reporting of potholes and things that come up that aren't necessarily part of the overall system. And you know what? People love it. And because people just assume that we know where every pothole is, and the fact is, they come up. And I see you laughing about that. But I can tell you that the people that I have talked to find it that they get a pretty quick response, because once you become aware of it, you're able to fix some of those smaller things as they go along. So I do encourage people to use that. I also appreciate the fact that you were talking about the diverse communication or community engagement platforms, because we are finding that in other areas as well, that we are getting more people participating, more diversity, because of being able to attend a meeting. And it's about childcare, it's about transportation, it's about parking, it's about the cost of things. And so I think that you're right. I think moving forward, it will probably be a multi-pronged approach when we have in-person meetings, to have the virtual opportunity as well. So, And I think that probably will be across the county departments because it's been very effective in getting much more input. Okay, so Commissioner Modis-Castillo.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ted, for a great presentation. As I think there's no secret that I really get excited about the Public Works presentation and the great work that you're doing. And I've been thinking all year about what your real spirit animal is, and I'm going with war horse. So I'm designating the Public Works spirit animal as war horse. I'm really excited about the news of the planner coming on board to work on pedestrian and bike. I would just add, let's make sure we're thinking about folks in wheelchairs. I frequently see, there's not sidewalks everywhere in our county, and I frequently see people who are dependent on wheelchairs using bike lanes because it's an opportunity for them to be able to get out and be active as well. And so I just want to make sure that that is on our radar, and we figure out how, as we're building bikeways, that they're not just bikeways, but they're for everyone that is rolling through our county, and that we're making sure they're safe. I'm wondering, and I'm really grateful for all the work you have done on the 4-3s and making our community safe. I've been out visiting Larpenteur and Maryland Avenue this week, which is looking fantastic. And so if people haven't been out, they need to see the great work that's happening. I'm wondering, we spent a lot of time studying the effectiveness of 4-3s, and I think now we've proven that it works, which is why we've moved to permanency. Do you see that we're going to be able to move quicker and not maybe have to go through the entire process countywide to make our other roads safer? Do you see that coming? And then the other question I have, I'll give it to you and you can respond. I'm looking at the performance measures that you shared, and they've been pretty consistent from 2017 to 2021, with the exception of the percentage of funds spent for multimodal. So thank you for that big increase of 3%. I'm wondering what is your goal performance measure? Is this 2021 estimate a goal, or is that what you think you can get to, or do you have a stretch to go further, or is this the right balance? I'm just wondering about that.
Okay. Let's go to kind of your first question about can we move faster? If we weren't losing $3 million, absolutely, we probably could. But, I mean, budgetary items are going to affect that. I would say what we have learned kind of through doing projects is that anytime we're making a change, we need to make sure that we are communicating and engaging the community in that change. And so we've learned that by doing that, we bring them into the process, we hear their voice. And so any of these roads where we are looking at making a 4 to 3 lane conversion, we will be doing some level of community engagement with it. It may not be as big as a complete reconstruction project, but at least so that they're aware of it. And going back to how we are selecting projects, this 4 lane to 3 lane conversion is in that mix. And if we can kind of match up some of those safety effects with making a pavement change, we'll look more closely at those 4 lane undivided roads and maybe prioritize those above others that aren't giving us necessarily that safety benefit. And I'm trying to think of your second question here.
The performance measures.
Performance measures. What is our goal? Our goal is 0, right? It's kind of like towards 0 deaths. Our number is 0. That's where we want to be. Attainable? Probably not. 2.0 is something more what we think we can get to. I think we want to be more in the 1.7 to 1.6 crash rate within our county road system. And like I said, as we start to make these changes, knowing the data out there, again, I'll say kind of restructuring the Public Works Department and bringing in a traffic engineer who focuses a lot on the safety aspects of our transportation system. He is really digging into what the data is. And so now we're getting a better picture of where our current issues are. And then he's also, again, systematically looking at those proactive things that we can do that we know will affect our safety in a positive way. So based on those two things, I think you will see that number, or we are expecting, I'll say, that number to move. I will also say the nice thing about the work that we are doing with these 4 lane to 3 lanes right now, we have 3 roadways that we're doing, McKnight, Maryland, and Larpenteur. This gives us a great data testing pool to see specifically what is going on, how it is occurring, what's changing with traffic volumes, what's changing with speeds, what's changing with crashes. And so part of it is us collecting the data on it so that we know kind of specific to us in Ramsey County what these kind of changes are making for us.
Thank you for that. It's kind of a shame that we have to tuck Public Works into a bigger day because I think that you deserve your own day. I think about Public Works and the partnership and community design, that it really is about equity and it is about economic growth in our community. And so I'm just giving an extra shout out. I'm making you blush. Thanks for being a war horse. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Okay, Commissioner Fretham, and then Commissioner Carter. I'm sorry, I'm still laughing about the war horse.
Thank you. Thank you for acknowledging, I think it was one of my constituents who made the comparison to a third world country on the road. So, yeah, folks have some strong feelings. I'm wondering if we have comparative data with other metro counties on the pavement quality index.
Off the top of my, Madam Chair, Commissioner, off the top of my head, I don't, but I know in kind of the work that we have done previously, pavement quality or pavement condition is a performance measure of almost every metro county. And so we could go back out and look and see where we compare to those other counties pretty easily by looking online or connecting with them and see what they have. I think we are generally in the same ballpark. Everyone's right around that 60 to 65 range for their pavement condition or pavement quality.
Great. I would love to see that, and just to balance out that bit of feedback from one of my constituents. I'll just note that another constituent in that same city wanted me to share. I was out in the community and with my mask on, and she noted that the project along Bald Eagle was so painless. She was very grateful for the work that was done and was very complimentary to Public Works. So thank you for that. And then just wondering if, noting this 15% reduction in county state aid revenue and the 6 miles of pavement, lost, and obviously concerns in my district and in other people's districts across the county, what all options, or what should we as commissioners be looking at to find other sources of revenue? Obviously, we are not advocating for levy funds to try to address this, but what should we be thinking about as other means to try to look for funds to try not to fall behind, knowing that we are trying to continue investments in infrastructure? Is this, as we evaluate, our legislative platform for next year, should we be looking at bonding requests for infrastructure investments to try to offset these losses? Is that a route we should be pursuing, or other thoughts on that?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Fretham, two areas, I'd say, where outside of kind of our traditional transportation revenues that we've seen in other times have really benefit, I'll say, the transportation and construction industry. State bonds. And so like you mentioned there, legislature passing a bonding bill, putting money into both the local road improvement program and the local bridge program. Those are the two things across the whole state that benefit all counties, cities, local agencies in doing important transportation projects. And then the other one is a federal stimulus bill for transportation. Another one that infuses a lot of money into the program, into the industry. We learned back in 08 through 010 when that happened then, there were some things that were good about it and things that were bad about it. And so we as the Metro County engineers and others, staff, we've been talking about, if we start to hear of a federal transportation bill coming forward, having some key talking points or key themes, working with Jennifer O'Rourke on government relations, and making sure that as federal legislators are talking about a stimulus bill or a bill for transportation, that kind of our needs are looked at and met as a part of that. So those are really the two places that we see that an infusion could come to kind of help alleviate the local losses in funding.
Okay. We will turn now to Commissioner Carter.
Thank you very much, and with great appreciation for your spirit character, I just want to underscore the work that you have been doing with our communities. And recently we had the opportunity to talk about the L Street Bridge. You know, certainly it is characteristic of the fine work that you and your team have been doing and getting out and working to engage community, to focus on equity, and to ensure that that project is a community-focused project as much as it is a roads-focused, bridges-focused project. So I appreciate the work that has been happening there. I get out in that area quite frequently, walking and on my bike, and even driving across the bridge, as you have made it possible for that transportation route to be continued even in the process of the construction, which won't be ended until, of course, next year. But it has been a project that has been serving the wishes of community. And during COVID-19, you know, we can't really say that there's a lot positive about COVID-19, but we can say that it has assisted us to have a construction process that has impeded less than in a typical construction period. So thankful for that, and that you've used it well. Also, as I look at your performance measures and applaud your identifying the ways in which we are measuring safety and quality and ensuring health and wellness and opportunity, I also want to point out that we have aggressively begun to determine that we will increase our opportunities for contracting and employment. And last December, as we talked at this board workshop about increasing our goals for construction employment, for employment of people of color, women, and others, we talked about that 32% and 20% goal that the state has. And I know we'll have an opportunity to talk about this in contracting and procurement, since Public Works plays such a large role in contracting for these projects. And since I know that you have been working in partnership with, in particular, Workforce Solutions to think about those big goals and how we actually reach those. I wonder if you'd spend a moment or two just talking about that partnership and how you are preparing to ensure that we will be able to look forward to reaching those high goals.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioner Carter. It's an area we're growing in. I mean, quite honestly, it's an area where we still have quite a lot of growth to understand how we can improve those percentages that we have right now. And so using Dale Street as an example, the Dale Street Bridge, right now we are in with the contractor that's doing that work. It's about a 5 to 6% female percentage on that project, and about a 14 to 15% people of color on that project. And if we start looking at that in comparison of the county goals of 20 and 32%, we are well short of that. Looking at our other peers in the metro region here, we're pretty consistent with the other counties. I'd say comparing us to MnDOT Metro District, we are lower than them. They are more in the 20% people of color and probably the 6 to 7% female on their projects. I think you brought up a great point here, is that there's a lot of collaboration and partnership within the EGCI service team, but there's also a relationship and a partnership that we need to grow within procurement and within legal. And so our county attorney's office helping us understand, I'll say, what we can and can't do in our contracts, and then procurement in different types of contracting different ways that we can do contracting. And so one of the ways that we've talked about is best value. So instead of a low bid scenario, bringing in some sort of best value contracting. I will say across the counties that I know across the states, it's not something that is done. Very few counties, if any, do best value in their transportation projects. They may do it in their vertical construction or in parks or other areas, but it's really not done in the transportation industry. However, we do have some connections within the cities that they have done something similar or used that process within their communities. And so we are connecting with them. We haven't set it up yet, or I shouldn't say, We haven't had that meeting with them, but we want to learn from them as to how they are doing that for their transportation projects, so that when we are hiring or selecting or awarding a contractor, if we are using a best value process, can we be more aggressive? Can we be more explicit in saying, we are requiring you to meet this goal of females or people of color on our projects? Right now, like you said, these are goals. And so are there ways where we can make that more of a requirement of the contract? I will say the other piece in this that you have supported through your efforts as a board, we are purchasing and implementing some software that at least gives us data, helps us track it, helps us understand where we are, and then that data helps us know how we can make changes or make decisions to influence those percentages in a positive way.
Just to follow up, if I might, Chair Reinhardt, to say, is that all right? To say thank you so much, and we recognize and appreciate the challenges that you've outlined are not just challenges for Public Works or for EGCI. They are challenges for the entire county as we have adopted those higher goals to ensure that we're actually walking forward in such a way as to have expectation that we can meet them. And of course, this board, having adopted them, understands they are challenges for us as a board. We appreciate the information you've provided today. We'll get the chance to talk a lot more about this, I know, in our county manager, or I should say, in our cross-county group. Come on, what do we call that? Okay, in our strategic team. And so we'll have that conversation, and we are preparing, of course, to support those opportunities which will help us move toward those goals. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, it looks like Commissioner McGuire has her hand up again.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had another remark I wanted to make, and I should have made it in my earlier remarks, but now that I'm following Commissioner Carter, I just want to add my voice to that and thank you for your work on our procurement efforts. And I know it is countywide that we have equity in our contractors, and that we really do support our small contractors and in all of our work. So, just thank you for that work moving forward. I also wanted to give a shout out to Brian Isaacson for all of his work on our Transportation Advisory Board. I serve on that board as a board of the Metropolitan Council, and he does great work at keeping me informed about all the ways that the work that we're thinking about doing affects Ramsey County, and it's just been great working with him on that. So just wanted to give him a shout out, and just to thanks to your whole team, Ted and yourself, for being responsive even when we can't get all the work done that we want to get done. You help me understand that, and I just really appreciate that. So thanks to everyone. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I would like to, every time I hear the words All Abilities Transportation Network, it makes me smile, because as budget chair, and having been budget chair for a number of years now, I was very frustrated and we were sitting in my office and trying to come up with what is it that we're trying to describe in the way we approach our transportation transit projects. Because in the past, well, for many years, it was all about the cars and vehicles on the road. And that's how you designed a road. And we were trying to get to the idea of it being about pedestrians and bicyclists, and to make sure that that was incorporated into the design from the very beginning. And I remember very clearly saying, and really out of frustration, it's about all abilities. And so we adopted the All Abilities Transportation Network, because it really describes how we plan and how we implement. And I think also the wheelage tax coming in, I would hate to think of where we would be right now without that. And in fact, as George stated at the very beginning, that was one of the ways that we were able to deal with the changes or the loss of revenue, not completely, but the loss of revenue from the state. And I do want to point out, because I'm kind of proud of this and the work that we as Ramsey County have done, but every once in a while, one of us, we all get awards and things for the work that we've done in Champion. And I recently received the 2020 award from the American Heart Association and the Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota as an active transportation policy champion for the work on the All Abilities Transportation Network. And I just want to read this one part, and that is, the All Abilities Transportation and Connected Ramsey County Communities Network is focused on making it safe and easy for everyone to integrate physical activity into their daily routine. And that's what we really all strive to do. So I wanted to share that because it is something that we all take to heart, and really applaud the Public Works Department, as all of the commissioners have. I really hate to close this out before we hear from Brian Isaacson. I know he always has something to add. So Brian, what would you like to add?
I don't know, can you see me blushing through this?
You should have been here. You should have been fine.
I didn't have much to add. I mean, you guys have all been so gracious in talking about all of the things that we're doing. I appreciate it. I will say that I've loved being here at the county because we are doing so many things that matter to our communities, and that's a very powerful thing to say in our industry. And I would credit the support that we get from all of you in this process to make that even more powerful. So thanks for the recognition.
Thank you. Well, it is an incredible team that you have in Public Works, as we do across the county, but it's clear that you really enjoy your work as well. So are there any other questions from commissioners? Let's see, Commissioner Carter, do you still have a question?
Madam
Commissioner
Chair.
Carter? No. Oh, okay.
No,
All
just
right.
having difficulty lowering my hand. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Just wanting to make sure. Okay.
Thank you.
I believe then, unless I hear otherwise, and I've got to get back to the.
One more quick item, Madam Chair. I'd be remiss.
Okay.
I'd be
Go
remiss
ahead.
if I didn't acknowledge Tony Lutkin, our finance supervisor. He really steered and guided us through kind of what's going on in 2020 here, and really laying out a great framework for us for 2021. So really appreciate Tony and Public Works and all that he's done for us.
Okay, thank you. Well, then, as a quick overview of what I heard as far as follow-up, the comparative analysis with other counties on the quality of our roads. Also, more, and we will get more follow-up when we get to procurement, but about the work that's being done on making sure that through procurement and the legal area that we can get to the goals that we have for equity in our contracting. Let's see here. One thing that didn't come up that I actually was thinking, well, it did come up, but not as a question, was regarding the wheelage tax. And I know that we have a report every year that comes out that basically says these are the roads that were done that wouldn't have been done without the wheelage tax. And so, and that's always very informative because, as I said at one point, we would be in a lot worse shape had we not done that because, especially now with the cuts that we are seeing coming forward. So and maybe getting some additional information on the impact of the wheelage tax and how it's really making a positive impact all across our county would be very helpful.
Okay, thank you, Madam
Anything else from commissioners? Okay, I'm not seeing anything else, so I think that covers the overview for Public Works.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners.
Thank you so much. Okay, next we have See here, Parks and Recreation. Mark McCabe is the director. His budget can be found on pages 72 through 75 in our budget book.
Okay, thank you.
Mark?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Appreciate the opportunity to be here and present to you today. First off, I'd like to say if Public Works gets a day, then Parks and Recreation ought to have a full week. So thank you, Commissioner Mattis-Castillo. Parks and Recreation, it's the fun department, and oh, what fun we've been having in 2020. As is the case with all departments across Ramsey County, 2020 has been a challenging year. I think I'm extremely proud of how we've risen to that challenge, but I do want to share some of those challenges with you. As you are aware, Parks and Recreation is largely a revenue-driven department, and the impacts to revenue this year have been significant. With the closure of ice arenas due to COVID-19, we're looking at a loss of revenue just from that segment of our department alone of $2 million. Additionally, we had to close park rental facilities for a significant amount of time. We were able to work through the service redesign to get facilities back open and available to the public with limited numbers of people participating. So that has had a significant impact in the numbers of rentals that we've been able to have this season. Golf courses were also closed for a month of operating. I'm happy to report that they are still projected to meet their revenue goals for the year despite this month of closure. So they're outperforming what they traditionally do, and we're excited about that. As far as facilitated programming, we've had to suspend that as well. Tamarack Nature Center programming, outreach programming, our aquatics Battle Creek Waterworks facility had to be closed for this year, and that's a significant impact to the community. And it has also had negative revenue consequences. I will say that despite all of these challenges, again, Parks and Recreation, I think, has done a significant work in leading and trying to find a way to get to yes. We've worked through the service redesign process to open beaches for the public, for people to enjoy. Parks and Recreation worked hard to open all park facilities prior to the traditional start of the season, allowing people to have additional access to parks, trails, other recreational amenities in a time where people were really hurting and did not have options to, I think, really get the quality mental health and physical health care that they needed in that time. And I'd say that I've never been more convinced of the necessity that Parks and Recreation plays in the quality of life of the residents that we serve. And I think we've all seen evidence of that this year. On the capital side of things, as you're aware, the 2021 budget called for $6.1 million of capital investments to Parks and Recreation golf courses, and a recommendation has been made to reallocate that funding to housing initiatives in light of the COVID-19 impact, which is a recommendation Parks fully supports and understands. Having said that, the maintenance needs for our facilities exist. My team and I are working through existing parks CIP projects and priorities to assess and see if there's any capacity to move part of the previously mentioned golf course projects forward using existing resources. As far as staff redeployment through the COVID-19 crisis, I think Parks has shown tremendous leadership in this area. Roughly 10% of Parks staff have been redeployed to serve in various capacities in response to this pandemic. We've had staff help with food aid in terms of leadership, contracting services, but also maintenance staff going out and physically hand delivering meals to homeless residents. We've had participants, leaders participate in the Racial Equity Community Engagement Response Team, IMT Logistics, Myself, I have served in an operations chief role for primarily the service redesign effort as we have gotten service centers up and running. And I'm very proud of the work that my team has done to help answer the call to the challenges that our residents have faced, our communities faced during this time, and think that our staff has shown tremendous leadership and has really served the public's best interest during this time. Parks will continue to work through challenges in 2021, as we'll likely have revenue challenges as a result of COVID-19, and we'll be tackling other issues as well. You've heard of the budget cuts for 2021, and those will have an impact on operations, but we will do all we can to continue to get to yes and find a way to offer all the services and more that are so critical to our residents' well-being. I want to touch on Parks' 21st century work. The 21st century vision, which you were presented about a year ago, unfortunately has been delayed just through the COVID-19 work that has taken place. But I am happy to report that Parks received $75,000 of community engagement funding through the county and has recently signed a contract with a vendor to help us advance this work, move this work forward with community engagement. As you recall, the Parks 21st Century Vision is to create a dynamic, community-centered system that provides opportunities for our ever-changing community to engage with inclusive and welcoming sites and programming. Simply put, the Parks and Recreation services and programming needs to represent the needs of the residents that live in Ramsey County today. This community engagement work has two primary objectives. One is to design a template and a process to effectively identify key stakeholders, segments of the community that we need to engage with, establish engagement methodology to effectively engage a racially diverse set of residents to help better understand their recreational wants and needs. The second objective is more specific and specific to the West Side Arena facility in identifying the recreational wants and needs of the residents who live in that community and what can be accomplished at the West Side Arena site. I'll be able to give a more in-depth update to this work during the EGCI Committee of the Whole meeting that we'll be updating you later this year. As far as the performance measures process goes, I would say Parks was challenged through this process. One thing that we identified is that we sometimes lack the tools needed to gather the information that I think would be very helpful to us, especially in the work of racial equity. So really identifying who are the users that are coming out to our facilities, who are the residents that are not participating in Parks and Recreation right now, and how do we reach out and effectively engage with that community and make sure that they're included, that they have access to these resources, and that they're able to receive the recreational services that would benefit them in their lives. In working through the performance measures that we did identify, I would like to touch on, kind of out of order, our third measure, the percent change in total ice arena usage that are used for non-ice events each season. And I think what that measure is really getting to is a diversification of programming, not just looking at these facilities as ice arenas only, but taking a look at these facilities as community resources, community event centers, areas that the community can engage. And we have a couple of examples of those facilities that I think are working to that model. The Aldridge Arena has long hosted graduations and other events like that, is more recently adapted and changed to host culturally specific events, concerts, Latino concert series, Hmong New Year events, quinceañeras. It's really turned into an event center for the community. And I think that the Twin Cities Sports Garden, TCO Sports Garden, the former Vadnais Heights Sports Center, that is also a model of a private-public partnership that is best serving the community, that we're expanding multi-purpose usage, have more facilities coming back online, and I think have a great opportunity to develop a model moving forward. So I can see more work in this space. And I think as we measure this non-ICE usage, that's really getting into how we are diversifying our service offerings, how we're growing in that space, how we're being more multi-purpose, and inviting more people to participate in these spaces and get a variety of services. The percent of staff who identify as racially and ethnically diverse in Parks and Recreation, I'd say this is an area that quite frankly, we're not doing well. And it's difficult to admit areas where you have a lot of growth and are not performing at a high level. And I think that it's also speaks to really shining a light on this issue and really trying to make significant progress. And so we have a lot of work to do at all levels of the organization, but I feel that through our work with HR, through the talent attraction retention program that is underway, that we can shift this metric, make improvements, and become more racially diverse. And the residents that we serve, the tens of thousands of people of racially diverse backgrounds that need to see themselves reflected in the Parks and Recreation staff who serve them, I feel that we can do a much better job and will do a much better job of having that representation. On the percent of natural resource acres that are improved and impacted throughout the year, we have a significant responsibility as a steward of land. We operate, maintain over 6,000 of acres throughout Ramsey County. Those acres are precious to people. Again, during COVID-19, we've seen people flood out into the park system, that there are millions of users coming out to the park system and that really need that resource, that need it well maintained. Commissioner Fretham is intimately aware with the need for resiliency to be built into our park system as we've had climate change issues, impacts throughout our system that's created flooding, that's needed mitigation efforts. And so this metric is really looking at that stewardship of natural resources and the role that we play in maintaining a high quality park system, maintaining access for people to enjoy, and being resilient through these challenges that we face. Lastly, I'll just touch on, I think I've touched on the racial equity impacts a bit through our engagement. I'm happy to field any more questions related to that. The open data portal, I just want to say that Parks and Recreation has been making use of the open data portal, but I think has some areas of growth there as well as we look to be transparent and put as much information online for people to view and engage with as possible. We've made some strides in that area, sharing things like user feedback from park reservations or program interaction. Things like water quality testing, making sure that people are aware of the testing protocols that we utilize and that they feel safe using these type of facilities. Deer hunting statistics, wildlife management, to make sure that they understand the reason for needing to invest in wildlife management resources. But I think we have additional work that we can do here to keep our public informed and to be transparent with the residents that we serve. So this time, I'd just like to say thank you again for this opportunity. 2020 has been a challenging year, but a year that I think our staff has really shown the ability to adapt and offer services and try to always say yes and not look for ways to say no. I'm proud of the work that my team has done and the work that our EGCI team has done and the leadership of Joanna Berg. I'm extremely grateful and proud of this work and grateful to have the opportunity to serve the residents of Ramsey County in this capacity. Be happy to field any questions that you may have at this time.
Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you so much, Director McCabe, for you and your entire department's work. I think parks have been the place where people can go to get respite and to just survive this pandemic that we're dealing with. And so I just appreciate that your ongoing efforts to keep our parks clean and safe and just a place where people can go. Thank you personally for your redeployment into our, our service redesign project. I know you've been spending so much of your time there, and just thank you for that. Thank you for being creative in what your goals are going to be as far as using our facilities for different uses. I think that's a great thing that we're working toward. And so I do have a couple of questions here. Just about the park's usage. I expect our numbers are way up. I mean, I think our numbers have always been really high. Have you been tracking that our numbers are even higher, that people have been using our parks even more? And just if you could comment a little bit on that. And then on that same line, I know that programming, in-person programming, had to be eliminated in many cases and reduced. Has there been could you talk a little bit about any virtual programming that we were getting people to do, or what kind of different kinds of things we might have been providing to other people? And then I'll let you answer that, and then I have one more question.
Sure, absolutely. As far as the park usage statistics go, again, in this process of going through metrics and determining what kind of metrics we can be accountable to, I would say we haven't had the resource to, say, go out and conduct daily park usage counts throughout our system. However, in the work that we do in our regional park system with the Metropolitan Council, that is part of what we need to do, and part of even how we're funded is by doing samplings of park usage. And so through that work, we have been working with the Metropolitan Council, and these are anecdotal numbers right now, or estimated numbers right now, but earlier in the season, it was estimated to be that usage was 35% higher than what it had been typically at that time a year ago. And we certainly have had staff out in the county park system as well, routinely checking on things, putting distancing signs up, making sure that facilities are up and running, and we absolutely have seen increased usage in those facilities as well. I don't have that percentage, but it is without a doubt, parks and trails have had significant usage this year. As far as the virtual programming, I'm happy that you brought that up, Commissioner. Yes, we have done some virtual programming. Tamarack Nature Center in particular did a whole series of virtual programming that's online, still available, accessible for people. Communications Department did an excellent job promoting those opportunities. And so for people like myself that have kids at home and summer camps canceled and things like that, there's an opportunity to still get them to have some educational programming, promote them getting outdoors in a different sort of way. And I was really proud of that staff for doing all that they could to still find a way to offer some programming as well. So number of virtual programs in that space online.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. And my next question was actually something you've already referenced, is the Metro Parks funding that is provided through the Met Council and also through our legacy funding. And I'm just wondering, because we're not sure if we're going to get a bonding bill on our Metro Parks dollars that we get through a bonding bill, and we know that legacy funds through the sales tax is probably going to be a little bit lower too, which is really unfortunate that all of these revenue budget streams are impacted, of course, by people not spending money in these areas. So and the legislature not passing a bonding bill, which we hope they still will do. So is your budget taking these into account? Just talk a little bit about how these uncertain funding areas will have an impact on your budget.
Yes, those were added gifts on top, or cherries on top of the sundae this year. So absolutely, we've been paying attention to that, and it is significant. It's very challenging. I think it's one of those moments where you're very personally closely connected to the successes or failures that happen at that legislative level, and can see the very real impact that plays out in the lives of residents that we serve. And so just to speak specifically, There was funding that we were anticipating through that bonding bill that would have been allocated toward the Long Lake Regional Park. We have a partnership with the city of New Brighton, as I'm sure you're aware, on the Lions Park facility. And that is to, we're building a restroom facility. We shared in a cost share for parking lot. We're building another picnic shelter. And so, we had done our work to have backup plans in the event that this funding wasn't available. And so we will move things forward, but that comes at the expense of other projects. And so it's an ongoing challenge of continuing to evaluate priorities, continuing to reallocate funding, and do the best we can to move work forward that we feel is the most critical and beneficial to the residents we serve.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for all your work. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Fretham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Director McCabe, for acknowledging the infrastructure and resiliency issues we're experiencing in our district. I know we've been in an ongoing discussion about that since November, and thank you for your patience and all the time you've committed to that. I know my community appreciates your attention, and it is a larger issue than Ramsey County Parks could certainly solve on its own, and it speaks to the broader issues in terms of bonding and infrastructure investment that we need in our communities and communities more broadly to respond to the local impacts of climate change. And I appreciate the attention to making greater use of green infrastructure in as we evaluate our parks in this budget and looking forward. And as Commissioner McGuire mentioned, the work that your parks team did to be flexible in responding to COVID in redeployments and using your skills to address this emergency, I think it's appreciated by all of us here. One thought that I'm having as I look through this and seeing these challenges and reciprocal opportunities as we look at the 21st century parks and the acknowledgement of our park staff and the low percentage who identify as racially and ethnically diverse and/or American Indian, and how our workforce isn't really reflective of the community. And just, what's rattling in my head is how perhaps how that's kind of mutually reinforcing if we have a park system that isn't reflective, 21st century reflective, reflective of maybe what our community looks like back in the 70s. And that if people haven't seen the way that they engage with nature and the way they enjoy recreation in the community reflected in the Ramsey County Parks and Recreation Department, maybe they haven't seen a place for themselves in a career in Ramsey County Parks and Recreation. And through the 21st Century Parks process, we can change that dynamic and also bring people of different cultures in. And then it could also mutually reinforce the work that you're doing in the diversification of programming and help continue that expansive work, which will then continue to bring those new revenue streams and reinforce this revenue-driven department to help, balance that portfolio and expand that portfolio and open up recreation more broadly to the entire community. So there's challenges, but I see a lot of opportunity here, and I appreciate these measures as being something that really present an opportunity even in those challenging times. So I want to thank you for that. I look forward to this work that we're moving on, and also appreciate the commitment, the ongoing commitment to acknowledging the impacts of climate change that we're experiencing here and in my district specifically that are impacting a lot of residents across the northern suburbs. So thank you for that.
Thank you for those comments, Commissioner.
Commissioner Modis-Castillo, you had your hand up, but then it looked like you were kicked out. I'm not sure if you have a question or not because you're back on now.
Yes, I did get kicked out. I'm back in. I do just have a couple questions. Following up on Commissioner McGuire's comments about our expanded usage of parks, I know I have been out at Lake McCarran's. It's very busy, but people are doing a great job social distancing. And I'm wondering, what your plans are for the fall, as we are continuing to do distance learning and we don't know where COVID is going to lie. Are there any plans to keep our parks open and accessible through the winter months? I think people are going to be out and about. I know like Lake McCarran's, for instance, the parking lot doesn't get plowed and people would like to be able to use that through the winter, whether it's snowshoeing or getting out to the lake and just being outside. And so I'm wondering if there are any plans to accommodate that as people and park usage continues to be up.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Commissioner Mattis Castillo, thank you for that question and that looking forward to what is coming also. And I'm happy to report our staff has engaged in those conversations and brainstorming of how we, anticipating what those needs will be as the seasons come up. And so we are looking at, are there opportunities just like we did this spring where we opened facilities earlier than is typical and allowed people to get out in that system. And we are looking at what can we do to extend the season this year. And that gets into operational challenges with how our maintenance staff and everybody rotates around throughout our system. But again, in this adaptive time, as we are typically a lot of our staff transfers into the arena system, and this year if there's more limited usage of those facilities because of restrictions, then that ought to free up some resources to be able to redeploy to have more park facility available. So yes, we are exploring that, and I'm confident we'll be able to make some modifications. To what degree, I'm not certain, but as you point out with Lake McCarran's as an example, using that racial equity lens, which that neighborhood certainly is a racially diverse neighborhood, and I think has a significant need for a facility like McCarran's to be open and accessible as much as possible. We will take that as a strong, under strong consideration and do all we can to extend usage and access for residents in that area.
Thank you. And on the usage and access, I'm wondering about trail planning. At one point, we were doing some trail planning around Trout Brook and Lexington Avenue trails, which will help connect kind of our more racially diverse neighborhoods into our park system. And can you just share where that's at, or if that's...
Sure. Madam Chair, Commissioner Mattis Castillo, the park system is engaged in a number of master plans right now. And the master plan amendments, essentially, that you referenced, the Lexington Trail, the Trout Brook Regional Trail, those were planned amendments to take place, funding being identified for those. A challenge that we have right now, as Commissioner McGuire noted, as the not getting a bonding bill passed to earmark funding from bonding from Met Council to the park system has had significant impacts, and I think that is going to push out some of those plans because we don't have that funding. We also are really struggling to have funding to implement plans that we are in process of doing. So I know it's a delicate balance of you need to go through that planning process. That takes time. That takes a lot of community engagement. You also want to ultimately be able to implement plans, and so it's a both and. We don't want to have a bunch of plans on a shelf that don't get implemented, yet we have to get plans in process so that they can be implemented. So with those particular projects, I will have to get back to you on a timeline that we would expect to work on those amendments.
Okay, thank you very much. And thanks for all the great work. Our parks are really essential to our healthy living in Ramsey County. I appreciate your work.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, at this point, I'd like to do a little bit of an overview then. It seems like most of what we are going to get some follow. Oh.
I'm sorry. Before you go to your overview.
Oh. Okay. Well, we do need to get on schedule here, but I do have Commissioner Carter and Commissioner McGuire. I'm sorry I didn't see that.
We'll help you get back on schedule. Thank you. Before wrapping up, I just wanted to comment.
Commissioner Carter, your audio is not real great. Do you have your microphone
Can you hear me?
position? Now we can. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Before we move from this, I just wanted to compliment you also on the great work that our Parks and Rec staff does and the opportunities that you provide for all of us to be able to experience nature, learn and grow in nature. And I wanted to, as we talk about the 21st century visioning process, just ask, and hopefully you are ensuring that all aspects of the work that we do are open to that engagement and visioning process. I want to note in particular the great work that you do in early childhood and the opportunities that are provided for young people. I know that there are challenges and opportunities of location that may make it difficult for that sort of experience to exist across our county in the full year kind of implementation that it does today for certain who live close. But I still would insist that we have the opportunity to look across all of that work and consider how those connections might be made to partners in communities across our county so that we are able to see that kind of diverse and comprehensive engagement across the community to the extent possible. So to compliment you for that work that is happening at Tamarack Nature Center, and to ask that all aspects of our parks and recreation work be visited and explored during that visioning process is all I want to do. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Commissioner McGuire.
Here. Thanks, Madam Chair. Just a quick, it reminded me as we were talking about Lake McCarran's Lake, I wanted to give a shout out to the Parks and Rec staff. When we had a Roseville in Bloom rose dedication at our park in conjunction with the Rice Larpenteur Alliance, the park staff there was amazing in helping get that to happen. And also they're thinking outside the box and helping beautify the park to match the rose with some local grant funding. They said, well, maybe we could put some of these paintings, you know, by this local artist in our park structures. And so it was just really gratifying to me that the park staff is so willing to think outside the box and really move beyond, you know, what one might think is happening. And so it was just a great day, that rose dedication at one of our parks, and the park staff that did such a great job. So just thanks for that.
Thank you, Commissioner McGuire, and I wanted to say thank you, Commissioner Carter, as well, for your comments, and we certainly will take that into account as we do our 21st century work.
Okay, now I'm going to check the participant list once again. Okay, I think I'm good this time. All right, so I'll attempt to do an overview. Again, the 21st century vision, I know it's been delayed because of COVID. So many things have been, but I appreciate the fact that it is moving forward and all of the pivoting that your staff had to do to help out in other areas as well. It's very much appreciated. I should have mentioned earlier that Commissioner McDonough was unable to be at the hearing this morning, and he did notify us of that. But I do know that one of the things that he is passionate about, along with other commissioners, but that he specifically talks about, is the wants and needs of our diverse residents. And I was appreciative of the fact that that you brought that up, because you know, it is the 21st century. It's not what we had as some of these things were being developed that did not take that into consideration. So I wanted to give that shout out to Commissioner McDonough as well. The parks usage and the virtual programming, getting some more information on that as far as how it's been increasing and some of the different methods of delivering services are. Would be, I think, very nice to hear. I heard a question about winter operations. Just as you opened up earlier in the spring, what are you looking at as far as winter operations at our facilities? And then finally, the connection to communities, whether it's through transit and trails, working with Public Works, or through the communities in which we have facilities and trying to connect them throughout the county. Was also an important theme that I heard from commissioners. And finally, I would like to personally say thank you again for the Battle Creek Regional Park recreation, the playground area there. I think it's also, if you wanted to see the community engagement in process, the community engagement that was done to make sure that that got designed and implemented and is operational was just phenomenal. And I know the people in the area appreciated it, but beyond that, we have a lot of people that come into Battle Creek Regional Park, and it is very well received, and people are very excited about it. I was also very excited when I visited it, because you had signs up, as you stated, for social distancing and some of the rules, just to remind people in different parts of that. But you also had the census signs up. Still time to do the census. So I'm going to throw that one in there too. All right, thank you very much. And we will move on now to the libraries and hear from Jill Boldenau, the director of the libraries. And I will let the commissioners know that after the library presentation, we will take about a 5-minute break. But we do need to get back on schedule. We're a little behind, and the fact is we don't have time to run over today because we have a full afternoon session as well. The library budget can be found on pages 76 through 79. And welcome, Jill.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Reinhardt and Commissioners. I'm Jill Boldenau, Library Director, and today I want to talk a bit about the library's current modified services, and then I'll also touch on our performance measures and how we're telling our story on the open data portal. Well, COVID certainly has had a big impact on us. However, since March 23rd, the library has sustained residents' first services, and we've prioritized racial equity and community engagement throughout. And we've also introduced new services and new delivery methods. The library has been doing incredible business in circulating physical items. We offer curbside checkout at 6 sites, as well as grab-and-go pickup service in the atrium of the library at Roseville. And we're also providing home delivery to qualifying residents. And last week, the library circulated over 22,000 physical items. During this period, we have also seen very large increases in the circulation of e-resources and the use of our website. In August, ebook circulation was 59% higher than last year, and e-audiobooks were up 66%. In consequence, we've increased our purchasing of e-resources in order to meet the surge in demand. The library has also leveraged BiblioCommons, the new digital library, to provide timely resources about modified services, COVID-19, and race and social justice resources. The library launched public computing appointments in June, and computers have been available 7 days a week at 3 locations, and each week we serve more than 500 bookings. During this time, staff have provided phone-based reference service with record numbers of phone calls, and they've also created innovative new programs in virtual and take-home formats to deliver summer learning and other programs. Today, in partnership with several departments, we're also hosting county service centers at the libraries in Roseville, Maplewood, and Shoreview with navigators and embedded experts in financial and other services. And in addition, in partnership with Ramsey County Workforce Solutions, we're hosting community career labs at libraries in Maplewood and Roseville, and we're also distributing tech packs at those locations. Change has been a constant. Every time that we've moved a piece of our puzzle in a building, workspace, or service area, it has been fairly complex for both staff and the public. So this has been a challenging time, particularly also considering the ongoing traumas that have impacted both our communities and our staff. So I really want to acknowledge the big lift from library staff and other colleagues to meet resident needs at this time. And I'm really proud of how staff have delivered excellent service design, delivery, and modifications throughout. Now I'll turn to the library's performance measures, which are located on page 78 of your budget book. So the library chose these three measures because they indicate how broadly the library engages residents as measured by active account holders, and they indicate how well situated we are to serve our diverse community as measured by the demographic makeup of our staff. I want to highlight the measure of the percentage of youth with active library accounts. This measure is vitally important because youth library use correlates with better academic and other developmental outcomes. Research shows that there is a lifelong impact on youth who are ready for kindergarten, as well as on youth who are reading at grade level at grade 3. And the library has an important role to play supporting youth at these key learning milestones. So when we measure the percentage of active youth accounts, it reflects the breadth of youth accessing story times and early literacy resources, accessing physical and electronic materials, technology, homework help, and much more to support literacy and student success. As you know, for several years, the library has been actively working to increase youth account registration through our popular kindergarten card party and through the Connect Ed project, which has registered several middle and high school classes with library accounts. This year, we took another big step to engage more youth. We eliminated overdue fines on youth materials, and we did a one-time waive to clear the charges on all youth accounts. And as a result, we unblocked the accounts of nearly 6,800 patrons under age 18. And of these, over 700 youth have used their accounts and checked out nearly 6,300 items in the first half of the year. So looking at our measures, last year 20% of area youth had active library accounts. We do have stretch goals to increase that, and I'm happy to say that despite COVID-19, our children's and teen librarians are still engaging youth, schools, and parents to move this forward. This performance measure also speaks to the library's efforts in advancing community engagement and racial equity. Our decision to eliminate overdue fines for youth materials is a racial equity initiative. We recognize that fines may disproportionately impact people of color and people living in poverty. We also took this action in recognition of race-based educational achievement gaps. Also, since March, the library has also suspended overdue fines on all materials in recognition of the pandemic barriers and the economic pressures that residents face, and also the disproportionate impacts on people of color. Again, with the intention of advancing racial equity, we propose to extend the elimination of overdue fines through 2021 to sustain relief for all patrons. The other investments that we make to support racial equity include delivering free library programs to over 120,000 people of all ages annually. And even with COVID-19, we're still delivering accessible, relevant programs. I'll just highlight this summer we participated in One Book, One Minnesota, which is a statewide book reading and discussion project which was focused on the title, A Good Time for the Truth, Race in Minnesota, featuring essays by Minnesota authors of color. Community engagement and racial equity are also at the forefront of our collection development. Last year, 23% of our new collection purchases were by or about people of color, and we've greatly expanded our titles in world languages. And in order to do this, we don't limit our selection to major publishers. We go to residents and we ask them what materials, languages, and formats they want. We go to local vendors and cultural organizations to find those relevant collections. This summer, staff noted the surge in demand for anti-racism and related resources, and in response, we reallocated funding to purchase additional copies to anti-racism titles, and we built out a website section on race and social justice resources. We also engage a racially diverse resident board of trustees, as well as nearly 2,000 community volunteers and hundreds of Friends members every year. We frequently collect resident survey data also to inform service needs. We did an extensive community engagement project to inform the library's master facilities plan and preliminary design plans for the renovation of the library in Maplewood. And library staff also engage more than 100 partners each year, including schools, county departments, nonprofits, and others to co-create responsive services. I'll end with highlighting one of our other performance measures, which is the percentage of residents overall with a library account. And this measure indicates how well we connect everyone to lifelong learning resources. To support that, we've developed an open data portal story to boost this measure and to help all residents see themselves and the services relevant to them at the library. This open data portal story is entitled Ramsey County Library by the Numbers. It has multiple profiles of the various services residents can access, including collections, technology programs, and more. And the story also showcases Ramsey County Library's outstanding place in the library field. It highlights the fact that Ramsey County Library has been named a Star Library by Library Journal for the past 7 years. Star libraries are those with the highest per capita circulation, program attendance, library visits, Wi-Fi sessions, and public internet computer use as compared to national peers. We'll be working with communications to keep this story fresh, relevant, and updated with our most recent data. It is a great story that clearly goes beyond numbers to show the library's impact in our communities. Thank you again for the opportunity to share about the library's services and performance measures, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you. I know that I'm just going to state right from the beginning that all of us are passionate about our libraries, but I do want to ask that commissioners remember the timeline that we're on today and how busy it is. But I do want to give everyone a chance to talk about how important this is to our communities. And so I will start with our Library Board Liaison, Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I will be brief because I know I do appreciate the time frame and you're doing a great job trying to keep us all on track here. So I just want to give my thanks. I'm very lucky to be the liaison so that I get to actually sit in on library board meetings and hear monthly, of course, how amazing our board staff and the work that they're doing is. We know now that people are using our libraries as much as ever, if not more, and they so appreciate. I think I think I hear as much about how much people appreciate libraries as they do want their roads fixed. So it's a great thing that we're offering people. And just so thanks to you, Director Boldenau, and your staff and the library board. We have a wonderful library board that's very passionate about the work that they're doing and are watching very carefully all the changes that are being done at the library during this time. And so just thanks to them and the Friends of Libraries. I just want to give a shout out to all of those organizations that are helping our libraries out. So thanks for being service centers for us and for opening up for computers and for doing all the book delivery that people need. So I just wanted to say thanks for all of that. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I would also like to praise the library board and the libraries and the Friends of the Ramsey County Libraries for its connection and really looking closer at how can we, not only does the library have goals as far as providing services, but the overall goals of Ramsey County and how they are already making some transitions as far as the service centers and things like that. But beyond COVID, how there's an opportunity here to really be involved in the service delivery model as it relates to our overall county goals. And so I know that the library board and those that are involved in that are really taking that to the next level. And so I guess finding out a little bit more about that as far as follow-up and how things are going there would be great. And I like the fact that you mentioned the open data portal because it has information on the library, but obviously everything that we're doing here, it's something that we're very proud of in having that available so that people can get more detailed information and not just the overview of the budget and what we do and the services that we offer as a county. Commissioner Carter, your hand's not up, but you're on my screen. So are you trying to ask a question?
Wow, I don't know how that happened, but I am glad that you called on me. And I just want to, I want to take advantage of that to just say
I could
thank you.
I could tell.
So thank you again to the library for the incredible work that has been done. You know, as we've moved from a place where walk-in has been such a very important part of being a library, you know, to a space where the balance of walk-in and online has changed dramatically, you know, where we are open to our residents, but in new and dynamic ways, including being a new service center and a career lab. Thank you for finding so many opportunities to innovate in this time and to still serve our residents. I also want to point out that we are looking very forward to hearing more about the libraries and the manner in which you are adjusting in these dynamic and catalyst times for redesign, really, and thanking you for undertaking the challenge. We're looking forward to later in the year an opportunity to hear in our EGCI workshop format more from our libraries. So thank you so very, very much for partnering in this way with all of Ramsey County to ensure that our libraries are service centers and able to deliver both library and all services for individuals in our county. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do any other commissioners, and I wasn't trying to cut off conversation, I just, if you would like to make a comment, please do so. I'm just asking that you be as concise as possible. So anyone else wanting to say anything? Okay, I don't see any hands, but again, I know that to a person, we are all very passionate about the library services and the outreach to community. And we have heard a lot, especially now during COVID, about the importance of that connection, the human connection, the access to information, and how much that is really impacting people's lives. And so, again, a huge thank you to the library board and to the services that are provided there in connection with Ramsey County's goals. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we will take, it is now 10, what time is it? 10:35. We really don't have much time here, so I'm going to ask that we take about a 5-minute break and then come back. And when we come back, we will be hearing from Jean Kruger from Property Management. Thank you. there's 4 of us on. So I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. In the chambers, if you could note that we're starting up again. Okay. 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 We'll continue with the economic growth and community investment budget hearings with property management. Again, Jean Kruger is the director, doing a fantastic job. And that budget can be found on pages 80 through 86. So, Jean, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. And again, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today a bit about property management. For the last few years, as I have stood before you and shared the work around property management, I've often spoke of our role in providing a safe, clean, and welcoming facility for all our employees and the residents we serve. It truly became taken for granted that we provide clean and safe facilities. And so the last couple of years, we've tried to really turn that focus toward improving our environments and the welcoming and accessible nature of our facilities. And I've spoken about that as well, that as an organization, property management needs to move beyond brick and mortar, again, beyond clean and safe, and into how the facilities and the amenities and the services help serve the needs of residents. We've been doing that, the Residents First work, the Residents First facilities work, and we have been doing work and continue this year on some projects related to the ADA accessibility of our facilities, getting a complete review done, and also working on a comprehensive signage program for within our facilities so that we have a consistent branding, messaging, and wayfinding scheme as we move forward with our buildings. And we were working, heading in the right direction in all of those initiatives, and then along comes COVID-19. All of a sudden, we were back to focusing on safe and clean, and in a whole new way and with a new meaning. We immediately reviewed and enhanced the cleaning protocols in compliance with CDC. We adjusted our own work priorities and environments to accommodate social distancing while continuing to operate the buildings for the staff that needed to be there and the residents that did continue to come into our buildings. We partnered with public health, with occupational health and safety to ensure, again, that our buildings continue to be not only clean, but disinfected and safe for those that were in the buildings. Our staff deployed hand sanitizer stands, deployed signage, added social distancing decals, and as buildings did have residents in them, we have been deploying plexiglass shields like you see in any and all grocery stores and other places where there are transactional activities taking place. We've also reviewed and adjusted mechanical systems from the early days of thinking perhaps we could or should maybe shut down some floors or shut down some parts of buildings to understanding that keeping air circulating, keeping airflow, fresh air is extremely important, even in buildings that are less than 100% occupied. I do want to give a huge shout out to our staff. By and large, they cannot work from home. They need to be in every day to make the buildings clean and safe for those that also need to be there. And they have worked remarkably to keep everything running and in accordance with the county's COVID-19 preparedness plan. Though the pandemic has caused major disruption in activity levels at a lot of buildings, I would be remiss to not specifically mention Landmark Center and Union Depot. As event venues, the lives of the staff and the activities in those buildings has been forever changed, I would say. There were weeks with no events or programming, and now a very slow return to small, socially distanced events. Staff in both of those buildings has worked hard to reschedule events such that there are only delays in revenue as opposed to revenue losses. Unfortunately, that will not be totally successful. We can only hope that that loss in revenue ends in 2020, but of course, time will tell. If you had a rainy day and couldn't go to one of those parks for some recreation, you could also check out Union Depot, who started offering their yoga program virtually so that the folks that used to come into the depot could still take advantage from the, mostly I'm guessing, comforts of their own home. But even though we had less activity at some facilities, there really, again, was no less work for property management. And in fact, in many cases in buildings, there was more work to be done. You'll recall last year with the closure of the youth programs at BTT, by fall of last year, we had completely closed down that facility. Come the pandemic, and in the spring of this year, we were back to reopening a good part of that complex to be used for homeless and potentially homeless with COVID-19 positive and/or symptoms. We have additionally been involved in the standing up of the Mary Hall facility, also for serving homeless and originally COVID positive homeless, and also in the expansion of space for the safe space to allow them to continue the occupancy levels, but in a socially distanced manner. All of this work, again, is in addition to the normal buildings operated by property management and serving the needs of the greater community and the homeless. You'll remember last year, with the presentations that were done on the historic facilities, that we identified concerns related to the historic barn and the use of the second floor, and specifically related to the structurally deficient ramp. I am happy to report that we were able to work with the University of Minnesota Extension Services, the Fair Board, as well as the Ramsey County Sheriff's Office, and I guess fortunately or unfortunately, as your perspective is, we will no longer have the public uses of that second floor and ramp, which were deemed to be unsafe. In the last months, we have started to see increased activity in some of the buildings. As you are well aware, courts had to reopen and has done so in our buildings, and has had to do so in a socially distanced manner, which was a challenge not only for them, but in many cases for us. They have begun to use additional space in several of our buildings to accommodate the trials that they need to continue with. We've also worked with election staff, as they have had to be not only in the Plato building and others, but as they have worked to set up the early voting and ultimately the voting right before Election Day in November, to make sure that those activities also can be conducted within the guidance under the COVID-19 pandemic. You're also aware of the PC resource labs that had opened in the libraries and now have morphed to service centers and the career labs. And I just want to point out that behind all of those resident-facing or public-facing activities are a large number of support staff, not only property management, but others that are working diligently to make all these redesigned services a reality and available for residents. And the lessons that we're all learning from the new service center model will form the basis of the initiative and the model that we move forward with related to residents first and the facilities to allow us to deliver the services. I just will briefly touch on, as George relayed earlier, the property management budget reduction for 2021 that we are contributing is really in large part related to energy management efforts, energy consumption reductions resulting in savings that we're happy to be able to pass back for 2021 to the departments that in essence rent the space in our buildings and therefore can contribute to the lowering of the total budget. Within property management, what we do is so diverse and in many ways difficult to measure to get an idea of how we are performing or what we are delivering on. This year, we're bringing forward 3 measures, and they're measures that you've seen before from property management. I would like to thank the leadership of Brian Isaacson on the PMAT team, the rest of the members there, and particularly Gary Marachik from Property Management, who worked diligently this year amongst all the other activities going on to really focus and hone the performance measures that we're using. The 3 performance measures that we put forward are related to energy consumption, our CERT, small business enterprise spend, and the workforce participation in our construction projects. I truly believe these measures, although not encompassing by any means everything that property management does, they truly do support and work towards the county's strategic priorities related to all of residents first facilities, the economic competitiveness and inclusion, advancing racial equity, and resilience. We couldn't do our work without our team, and we're also happy to work in support of the TARP initiative, not only to attract and retain talent within our group, but the work we do in helping attract and retain employees across the county. You have and will continue to get separate updates related to the EGCI work and the county work, specifically related to the CERT small business spend and the efforts around workforce participation or inclusion, particularly by people of color, women, and veterans. Although each of those are critically important to property management because of the various conversations that do occur around those and the work that will be continuing and ramping up with our procurement and contracting team this year, I'm going to focus today on the energy consumption performance measure. This work has been central to property management for a number of years. In 2019, the energy governance team was formed as a new team to oversee this initiative within the county, led by Joanna Berg. The team expanded the reach of the energy management initiatives well beyond property management, well beyond EGCI, and includes staff from finance, public health, policy planning, communications, and ultimately includes all departments through the Facilities Energy Management Policy, which was adopted in 2019 as well. Although our work around the greater energy management program in the county has had to take a little bit of a step back this year, it has not in property management. This continues to be a high priority for us, and we have focused resources on it. We have targeted and achieved a significant reduction in energy consumption since focusing on this program in 2008, and as of the end of 2019, we have achieved a 32% reduction in consumption since that 2008 base year. This puts us ahead of our goal to have reduced our consumption by 30% by the year 2025. Unfortunately, we know that we have to overachieve those goals because each and any given year can be significantly affected by conditions outside our control, such as weather. What you see in the performance measures as being, if you will, relative year-to-year increase in usage in kind of the 2018 to 2019 is really a direct result of the polar vortex. I'm sure everyone can recall those years, and we don't get a break in our consumption just because of things like extreme weather conditions, of which we're likely to see many more over the years with the impacts of climate change. But the good news is, again, we are on track, and we are targeting to continue to achieve 3% reductions year over year, which will allow us to achieve our 2050 goal, which will be a cumulative reduction of 80% from our consumption levels in 2008. To achieve these reductions, in addition to the ongoing work by staff in ensuring we are efficiently operating all our systems, we are and will need to continue to invest in new technology and systems and equipment, because the low-hanging fruit, things like merely replacing a light bulb with LED, are disappearing. We are in the process of a major LED lighting replacement project at LEC, and we expect good results from that. But we will also be doing investments in building automation systems, which allow us, again, to more effectively and efficiently control heating and ventilating in buildings, with projects at LEC, up at the Arden Hills facility, and also here in the courthouse building. We also are undertaking some more major infrastructure projects, such as the new roof that was put on the Metro Square building last year, and the enhancements to the exterior of that building that will be occurring this year and through the next couple years. We've also made investments at other facilities, including the correctional facility, where we replaced large, outdated, inefficient boilers with new equipment. We also look forward to the implementation ongoing of the enterprise asset management system, which will again allow us to be more effective in how we operate, manage, and determine the time for replacement of systems that have reached end of life. We also expect to realize reductions in energy consumption through the work we're going to be doing in right-sizing our real estate portfolio under the Residents First Facilities initiatives. We can't minimize the impact that will have on our energy consumption. And while pursuing these investments and right-sizing of our portfolio, we also plan to pursue greater engagement with employees, tenants, and the community as we do and are able to move forward with our energy management program and leading into work under the Resilience Initiative. We have put energy consumption data on the data portal. The property management group, I haven't checked these numbers, but we probably have the least metrics on the portal, which is something we will continue to work on. But our energy consumption data is not only shared now on the Ramsey County open data portal, but it is also shared across the City of St. Paul website for their Energize program, and it's also available on the state's B3 platform. What this will allow us to do as we move forward is do some peer comparisons and starting to take a look at not only what are we doing to reduce consumption, but how does our consumption level compare with other like buildings or like counties within the government spectrum. Everyone benefits from the reductions in energy consumption through the reduced greenhouse gas emissions, reduced carbon footprint, and lower energy costs. I'm grateful to our staff, the focus they've had in this area and continue to have in this area, as well as the work they're doing on the projects to implement the investments that we have been able to move forward with. And that through these initiatives, we're able to deliver the cost reduction as a part of the revised 2021 budget. I thank you for the time today, and will stand for questions.
Okay, are there questions from commissioners or comments? I'm not seeing any hands raised right now, but I'm sure there will be shortly. I really applaud the efforts, and they have been ongoing, but really trying to help with not just the costs associated with with the energy consumption, but also the environmental impacts and the impact on climate change. We have a number of facilities, obviously, and it really does make an impact on a larger scale than what we could do, as individuals or as smaller businesses. So everybody has a role to play in that, and I know that Ramsey County has been working very hard to make sure that we do everything that we possibly can to change that carbon footprint for Ramsey County. Okay, Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I always feel like we should be asking a question because it's such an amazing presentation that you just gave, and it's such great work that you're doing. And so I just want to add my gratitude to that. I do have a couple of questions, but I'm also wondering, Madam Chair, when the appropriate time to talk about some of these things, because we are going to hear from these departments in our updates. We're doing our workshops on hearing other work from each of our departments. I guess my question is, and maybe you can tell me if we want to take it later, you mentioned the barn and how we're not going to be able to use the second floor of that. And I know that the Ramsey County Fair and their Arts In program does productions there. So I'm just curious what the alternate's going to be, but that can probably be handled in a future conversation if we don't want to take the time now. But, there's just so much information in what you presented that I'm just so grateful for everything.
Well, my thought here is that we would take things especially that are related to the budget, and I would think that particular, the use or the past use and future use of the second story of the barn does have some budgetary impacts for the Sheriff's Department and others as well. I don't know that it's a negative one because I don't think we ever recouped all the funds that we probably spent on those things. But regardless, it does have an impact. And so if we could get some information, if you don't have it available today, Jean, I can put it on the list so that we can make sure that we get follow-up information specifically about the change in use or lack of use of that facility. So, Jean, what is your pleasure here?
So, Madam Chair, Commissioner McGuire, I'll take a stab at answering that, and I think it's actually a fairly short answer. The uses of the second floor of the barn were nothing that generated revenue and or had any specific cost impact or minimal cost impact on property management as an organization. In fact, there never was, if you will, an event agreement or any other sort of an agreement for the uses of that second floor. So from a budget or a cost impact there to us or to property management, there really was none. And I can't speak to specifically the Sheriff's Office in terms of their the event and the relative cost and or revenue from that. I would have to defer that to them.
Good point.
So thank you for that, Madam Chair, and then maybe we'll just get an answer like where they're going to go from another entity then. And I just want to say thanks for all of your work on energy consumption. I think and your CERT SB spending. I mean, I think it's commendable. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Are there other questions from commissioners? I am not seeing any. So again, I think as far as an overview or follow-up, actually what we need is more information from the Sheriff's Department and probably the county fair as far as what the impacts are of not using that second floor of the barn from an operation standpoint. And I think that is clearly, from a safety and liability standpoint, it was something that needed to be done, and I'm glad that it was. But it does leave a hole in some of the, like the freight farm and some of the 4-H activities during the county fair. And there's a recognition of that.
Madam Chair.
Jean, did you have something?
Yes,
Go ahead.
if I could, thank you, speak to that. With the county fair, unfortunately, this past year, they were not able to hold the fair because of the COVID-19 pandemic. But prior to that decision to cancel it this year, we were in discussions with them, and their inability to use the second floor of the barn does not preclude them from having the fair on the grounds. And we had talked about the alternate methods by which the 4-H exhibits and the Arts Inn could still be achieved on site, just not with the use of the second floor. So it does not negate their ability to have those events or those activities as a part of the fair and on the grounds, just not in that specific space.
Okay. And that's whatever information there is as far as what has been worked out there, just as a follow-up. And it doesn't have to be right away because, as you noted, it doesn't have a financial impact on our budget for property management, but it is still, I think, valuable information for the commissioners to know what's going to happen with some of these activities. And I know that those are the two major ones. Okay, I still see no hands. So the only other thing is, again, keeping tabs on the energy consumption and what you are really trying to do there. A good work, and I know that it will continue and be even better. I also was very struck by your opening saying that it's beyond bricks and mortar. Obviously, safe and clean was important before. It's important now because of COVID-19. But ultimately, it is about residents first and serving the needs of our residents. And that is, again, I applaud the fact that you called that out at the beginning, because that's what we are all about. And when it comes to locations, sometimes they're just taken for granted, and property management obviously doesn't take anything for granted when it comes to being able to provide the services in a way that is valuable to our residents. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. We will then move on to community and economic development with the director, Carrie Collins, and that is found in our budget books on pages 87 through 92.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, members of the board. Thank you to County Manager O'Connor and to Joanna Berg, Brian Isaacson for your leadership, and specifically to Josh Olson, who served on our PMAT team for CED. And a personal thank you to the many of you on this Zoom meeting and to those in this room who reached out after the passing of my mother-in-law last Thursday. That support meant the world, and certainly a lot of multiple obstacles that we're juggling right now in terms of COVID-19, but it's that strength and support that put our organization on the Forbes list of top places to work. So thank you again. As Director of Community and Economic Development in 2020, it certainly has felt like shoveling in a blizzard and exhausting, as Joanna mentioned earlier, but there has been good, as we have observed in terms of transformational rhetoric, but more importantly, bold decision-making to advance the lives of racially and ethnically diverse communities. Now, as we dust ourselves off, we have the opportunity to create an economically competitive and inclusive economy like we've never seen before. What better time to be exploring an economic competitiveness roadmap than during a time where our region unites to combat the effects of layered viruses, COVID-19, and racism. We have a lot of work to do as a collective economy to rid ourselves of conditioned bureaucratic rigidity, but the short-term advancement has been extraordinary to watch, and that advancement has resulted in an energy to keep digging into the work. As mentioned in a previous board meeting, CED carved out a role for the county to function as resource navigator through this budget cycle. That role became critical as the Ramsey County Means Business portal became a repository for COVID relief resources. And now, with our partnership with Workforce Solutions, we can begin to match employees with opportunity. Through this crisis, we have been able to develop and strengthen relationships and solicit feedback for the vision plan that will help inform future budgets, budget resources, and program and policy consideration for years to come. The vision plan will include short to midterm goals that will underscore resiliency and transformative recovery to stretch across areas such as redevelopment, job growth, housing, workforce development, placekeeping and making, and community wealth building. At the conclusion of the plan, the county and our partners should have a clear roadmap to benchmark our investment in energy. Until that vision plan is finalized, CED has prepared the following performance measures in response to the recently retooled strategic priority, economic competitiveness and inclusion. We have 3 measures, 2 that are identified on the open data portal because they have existing data sources. One is around redevelopment, and that is the percentage of county-owned acres with higher and better use returned to the tax rolls. Number 2 is the percentage of residential units in CED-funded or partnered projects that are affordable at levels at 30% AMI, area median income, or below. And lastly, the percentage of participants in home ownership programs that are racially and ethnically diverse and/or American Indian. The redevelopment measure previously mentioned is new and revised from past measures, and it is a long-term measure. The county owns roughly 1,100 acres, of which close to 650 acres are identified in various stages of redevelopment from concept to design. For reference, the county owns close to 1% of total acres in the county. Tax-exempt land represents almost approximately 34% of land in Ramsey County, and more specifically, 52% of land in downtown St. Paul, which shouldn't be necessarily a surprise as we're home to the Capitol and many government buildings. But we've got some work to do. CED will continue to drive investment on county-owned land to prepare sites for higher and better use. The second measure should come to no surprise, the percent of residential units in CED-funded projects that are affordable at levels of 30% AMI or below. It should be noted that this measure was created before 2021 budget changes were considered for affordable housing. We did explore a measure at 60% AMI levels, but CED's participation in that is near 100%. And what we are more deeply recognizing through the vision plan efforts is the lack of supply at 30% AMI units in the county. We have a goal for 5% in 2021. Why so low? As mentioned, when we developed this measure, we were not aware of other funding sources, so we were confined to the federal entitlement funds from HUD. We are also subject to reacting to fluctuating market conditions, and we anticipated that the funds would be used to the restricted suburban Ramsey County funds that we see through CDBG and home. Lastly, 5% of units at 30% AMI is expensive, as you all well know, and the bulk of our allocation is typically requested for projects at 50 to 80% AMI. And lastly, home ownership, the percent of participants in home ownership programs that are racially and ethnically diverse. It was recently reported from Minnesota Compass that only 24% of black households in the state of Minnesota own their home, compared with 77% of white Minnesota households. This is one of the highest disparities in the nation. The home ownership measure is an even more intentional effort to advance racial equity in Ramsey County. The data continues to show that home ownership is one of the largest contributors to generational wealth. Redlining, restrictive racial covenants, and other systemic racist policies and practices have extracted that wealth from racially and ethnically diverse and/or Native communities. CED has stepped up partnership efforts with banks and realtors to expand awareness of the First Homebuyer program. More targeted marketing of that program and greater intentionality with our program administrators of our rehab programs will increase participation by BIPOC households and expand home ownership. This is an area where Minnesota Metro lags severely behind other metropolitan areas. These 3 measures find their way into aspects of the vision plan: housing, community wealth building, and tax base and jobs. As mentioned earlier, we can no longer hope for outcomes to change, and I know this board and our county team are definitely inspired to act. COVID-19 related economic relief and resiliency will certainly be prioritized for the remainder of this year and into 2021 as we continue to get relief dollars out to our small business community. We will continue to leverage our resources and partners to assist our business community to the extent we can, work to advance our role in affordable housing in a way we haven't before, and advance our complex redevelopment projects to strengthen our tax base and or create jobs. So to Joanna's earlier point, we are exhausted, but know that you have a team of economic development professionals and committed countywide staff that have all assumed leadership positions in this work and are rising to the challenge. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, finally. Okay, Commissioner Modis Castillo and then McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Carrie, for a great presentation. Just like Public Works, I get excited about this area, and I was thinking about, that you're tiny staff, but you're doing such great work. You're kind of like a field mouse that roars. If you think about how small but mighty you really are. So, I just want to say, when I hear about where we are and where we're going and the amount of work that we have done holistically through COVID, both in reacting to this crisis and the civil unrest, while still continuing with our vision plan and where we want to go. I mean, this to me is the nuts and bolts of our work here at the county. It is about expanding our tax base. It's about empowering people and taking care of, through equity and diversity. And so this work is so critical. And I really feel like we should lift this up even more because to me, this is what we get elected for. This is why we are here at Ramsey County doing this work, is so that we can do this and think about how we use land use so that we are adding and contributing and making sure that our wealth equity is even across the board, despite, thinking about, whether it's race or ethnicity or income levels, and that we are focusing at that 30% AMI. And so I'm just really excited about the work that lies ahead. I really appreciate your indicators on that we are taking bold and courageous steps. And thank you to your team, and thank you for all this work leading us forward. Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm just going to add to what Commissioner Modis Castillo has said. You are a small but mighty department, and I think you are the epitome of what our county's been doing, which is looking at what are we doing as a county and what should we be doing, and we should be doing more of this, and you and your department are really showing that. So just so grateful for that work, and just for your work in the community. When I go out into my area and into my district, and I know you're doing this in every district, you're really accessible, you're presenting at our city councils, you're presenting at our business councils, you're really present to our communities and really working with them to make sure we are doing what they need, and we know that that's crucial in this area for sure. So I just want to add my thanks to your work and how you're doing it, what you're doing, how you're doing it, and just couldn't be more proud and grateful of that. So thank you so much to you and your whole department.
Okay, I'm looking to see if there are other hands raised. At this point, it doesn't appear that there, Commissioner Carter, sorry.
One more add-on. Thank you so much for being that.
Okay, your audio again, Commissioner. Yep.
All right, thank you. Thanks again for being that field mouse whose roar. Make certain that we are countering conditioned bureaucratic rigidity. I love that. And thank you for doing it. And last thing is, I just have to make certain that we are celebrating today the announcement of your leadership in local government award from the St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for that work that you are doing that causes that kind of recognition throughout our region. We so appreciate your work, and there are others that we'll talk about who are included in that as well. Thank you so very much, Kari.
Commissioner Bretham.
I know we're tight on time, but I just want to add my gratitude for this work, and also the inclusion of looking at home ownership, looking beyond affordable rentals and home ownership and wealth building. I know that's an area I'm really passionate about, that we're looking really at that wealth building and generational wealth building. So I'm glad we've included some some performance measures in that area as well. So thank you. Looking forward to continuing this work into 2021 and beyond.
Okay, then as an overview, I think, well, first of all, I'm glad that Commissioner Carter brought up the recognition for Carrie Collins, well-deserved, and for the work that's being done in this area. I think probably the one thing that we will get, but I'll call it out here anyway, is more information or ongoing information on the assistance that we are providing to stable housing, the home ownership, to businesses as we get through COVID, and really trying to transform systems together regarding racial equity and civil unrest. So I know that we've got the CARES funding that's coming in, but the work here started before all of this, and we've had to make changes, obviously. We've got some funds through CARES, but it's an ongoing effort. And so I appreciate all of the information, all the work that's been done, but also keeping us up to date as a county board as we continue to try to address these really important issues. Okay, I'll make sure. Commissioner Carter, I think you still have your hand up. But I'm going to assume that was probably from before, unless you say something very quickly here. Okay, then we will move on then to Workforce Solutions. Ling Becker, the Director of Workforce Solutions, will be presenting the budget. Her budget is on pages 93 through 98.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do want to just say one last thing as Ling makes her way up here, that none of this would be possible without my Deputy Director, Josh Olson, and the small business relief effort and the website wouldn't be possible without Rick Howden. The vision plan wouldn't be possible without Martha Faust, and our HUD programs wouldn't be possible without Mary Lou Egan. So a special shout out to my team who are just absolutely fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Feels like I was just here. I was, so.
Yes.
Yes, this has been, I think exhausting is a good theme of a word. We've been running a marathon and a sprint, really in a lot of ways at the same time. While truly it is exhausting, I feel like we cannot slow down because the work is so critical and urgent. And rather than working harder, I think we have to really think about how to work smarter and really differently. And so that's the kind of the themes of which we're going to be talking about. There's a lot of people to thank, and I'll thank a couple of folks as we move into the performance measures, but I especially just want to honor our Deputy County Manager, Joanna Berg. She's been just such a steadfast leader and support for me, in particular, nights, weekends. It's been a long few months, and she's been just really, really supportive. So being in this role about 1.5 years and leading this department, a lot obviously has happened. Our department would not be as well positioned to respond to this ongoing condition without this new leadership team that has been in place. So we have 4 managers. One has been there about 2 years. The other 2 are just hitting their 1-year mark this month. So I want to thank them for their tireless work and their commitment to build an integrated, effective, and holistic department. But today, I most importantly want to thank our staff. Despite COVID-19, Workforce Solutions has been open and continually ready to serve our residents. Our staff are resilient and they are a resourceful group. They're highly skilled and they're deeply empathetic to serve our residents. They have been doing a tremendous job over the last few months, and I'm more confident than ever in their ability to continue to play a critical role in supporting Ramsey County families and residents at this time. Through the telework model, they quickly pivoted to virtual services, primarily working from home, but to ensure no interruption of services since March, the resident-facing staff have come into the office up to 1 day a week or more and committed to ensuring there was continuity when it comes to documentation, scanning, and other necessary paperwork to ensure resident engagement and meeting our grant requirements. So even in the midst of COVID-19 and civil unrest, we have success stories of residents moving forward, finding new employment, engaging in training, graduating, and finding hope. Certainly, COVID-19 has had significant impacts on our Ramsey County economy. I've had the opportunity to talk to you multiple times since March, most recently Tuesday, here to update you on our CARES projects. I'm particularly grateful for the prioritization by the county manager and this board to mitigate the workforce impacts with our CARES funding. In addition, during this past year with the pandemic, I've worked closely with our state funding agencies in order to better align our work. For the state to truly advance race and inclusion outcomes in employment, Ramsey County, the City of St. Paul, are critical partners along with our colleagues in Hennepin County and the City of Minneapolis. And new conversations are being had that were not being had before. Speaking of regional partners, I've been working closely with all the Metro directors in the area in the workforce space to ensure that we are serving our communities through increased coordination. For instance, in a virtual environment, we can host job fairs to attract job seekers from throughout the region. Again, working smarter, not harder in a lot of ways. As you know, there continues to be significant unknowns that impact what is happening in our labor market, including uncertainty about future unemployment benefits, not knowing how many jobs are truly vulnerable as businesses continue to attempt to pivot their COVID response, and uncertainty for many families, working families, needing to care for children while distance learning. All this disruption has sent shockwaves through our community. We will be dealing with these impacts for years to come. But we also have to push ourselves to build a post-COVID economy that can work for all residents, truly recognizing that our pre-COVID one did not. And that's why the work that Carrie's leading is so critical. We did not share our notes, but we actually used the same word to describe the new plan that we've been working on, so I want to just call that out. Being able to work alongside her and her team on the economic, competitive, and inclusion plan is a significant step to building that collective roadmap that she referred to. I think both of us realize the value and the critical need to have that roadmap with their focus that is based on community input, based on data, and our vision, mission, and goals. So as I move into my performance measures, I certainly want to thank Brian Isaacson for his leadership on behalf of our service team, and thank Larry Timmerman from our department. Focusing on a couple measures allows me an opportunity today to weave CARES efforts with our department efforts, and I hope to be able to share that with you now. I'm going to be focusing on the third measure that is in your book. I believe it's on page 95. It states that it's a ratio, but it is not. It is actually just a straight percentage. And this measure is a percentage of staff, both county and our vendors, who are ethnically diverse and or American Indian. The equitable staffing measure highlights our department's objective to deepen our work, serving residents with a diverse staff that is reflective of the community we serve. We have been strategic to take this measure into account, not only for our own county employees, but also of our contracted vendors. Workforce Solutions is experiencing year-over-year increases in this measure. Data was not complete going back to 2015, but at that time we estimate about 50% of the county and community staff working with job seekers were racially diverse. That percentage has increased gradually, 57%, 58%, as you'll see. Respectively, these rates have increased through community engagement and program decisions, through encouraging diverse applicants through a community-centered network of sharing opportunities, and valuing personal experience as a hiring criteria, and also growing our partnerships with a focus on racial equity and services through intentional collaboration with community organizations. You'll see that we take a slight bump in 2022, quite a bump actually, and then go back down, and I'll explain why. In 2020, the CARES funding allowed for contracting with a higher percentage of racial and ethnically diverse agencies, raising that percentage up to 65 and boosting that up. When we gather that final data in 2020, I now believe that we probably undershot that number quite a bit. As you recall from on Tuesday, I discussed partnering with over 95 different, around 95 different community contracts, which should significantly make that number go maybe even higher than we had anticipated when we had done this. In addition, having staff representative of the community was important, even in opening our career labs. 60% of our newly hired career lab assistants are racially and ethnically diverse, and we're ensuring that there's different languages that they can speak, and those have been received well from the community. With new CARES funding, community organizations are going to be able to help us raise those numbers. In addition, in the second measure, which is about full family services, the CARES funding also allowed us to do kind of a similar thing where we're able to raise that number in 2022 because we're working with community organizations that are providing more full family services. The leveraging of full family services focuses our residents more holistically, utilizing programs that build family well-being by intentionally working with children and adults. Data demonstrates that by combining parent and child interventions, we can interrupt the cycle of poverty. In Ramsey County, we have already seen success in this model, and you might recall that during our EGCI Committee of the Whole meeting, I shared about the Families Achieving Success Today program, or FAST program. We know that serving the whole person and the whole family produces not only more successful employment opportunity, but also life outcomes of better well-being and prosperity for our residents. Racial equity has been deeply embedded in workforce solutions programs for quite a while. Our CARES funding helped us to even do more of that. And while CARES funding is short-lived, it provides a unique opportunity to see what can happen when we are able to have more flexible spending to support our residents. Lastly, community engagement is a vital aspect to our workforce programming and has been prioritized through evaluations of many of the innovative programs that we have done. In 2019, Workforce Solutions initiated a strategic community engagement plan, and it is my hope in 2020 we will be administering a survey to all program participants to better understand the needs of our residents. Ongoing dialogue with the Racial Equity and Community Engagement Response Team through CARES has helped us do our work better. We hope to carry that lesson well beyond 2020. The engagement of town halls and other efforts centering our work around the community is something we should continue to do. So in closing, I want to end with a comment that I actually heard from a community member. This is a quote. To strengthen individual, family, and community health, safety, and well-being, Ramsey County's goals, is only possible when trust is restored and the community is engaged. I know there is a lot of work being done in the county to ensure that this is happening. For Workforce Solutions, the CARES funding and the work of our department continues to accelerate as an opportunity to work on relationships and build trust. I take that responsibility of those relationships extremely seriously. We've onboarded 95 contractors for our CARES funding. Today at noon is the first orientation that I haven't actually ran the whole orientation. We believe that we have to speak on behalf of the county from the highest levels of leadership to our community. While this is happening in real time and relationships take time to evolve, I am so humbled by the community's willingness to work alongside us during this very challenging time. There is a lot of work to do. There is a lot of unknown. The one thing we do know, that is we all need to be in relationship. There needs to be a strong relationship between the county and our community in order to move forward. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Director Becker. I guess I do have a question on page 95 in both the second and the third performance measure. I know that we have a program, basically the estimate between 2020 and 2021. Which has the asterisk that says estimated rates include both the economic impact and programming resulting from of COVID-19 and the programming resulting from CARES resources administered by Workforce Solutions during 2020. But I guess it goes down in 2021. And when you're looking at equitable staffing and percent of workforce solution services providing full family or multi-generational services. I guess it seems like once you have achieved a percentage that you wouldn't go backwards.
Yeah, and that's
So
what,
can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. That's a good question. I'm happy to highlight that one more time. What we're demonstrating here is that in 2020, we're able to get that boost because of that CARES funding, working in collaboration with our community and those community organizations. And when those contracts end on December 30th, we'll go back down to what we can currently fund within our models or within our programmatic funding streams. Does that make sense?
Okay, so this is about pass-through funding, and those services would end because we have to spend all the money by December 30th.
Right, so I'll give you an example,
Okay.
Madam Chair, based on the equitable staffing measure. Because we've been able to contract with 95, or with organizations through the 95 contracts, when we add the vendor staff, that's going to be significantly higher in 2020 than it would be in 2021 when those contracts expire as of December 30th.
Thank you very much for that explanation. That helps a lot. Okay, Commissioner McGuire, then Matas Castillo and Carter, in that order.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm just going to thank you, as I've been thanking the directors, for your amazing work. I'm going to preempt Commissioner Matas Castillo. She's probably got a great spirit animal, but I think of you as the Energizer Bunny, only because you are so, I mean, there's a number of directors that are working so tirelessly, but you are everywhere, Director Becker, and you are out in the community, and I'm going to thank you, as I did others, for your work at our business council meetings. You're just out in the community responding to all of their questions and concerns and really present to my cities and the residents that I serve, and I know you are that way throughout the county. So thank you. Thank you so much for that, and just for all of your creativity and your work, and I know you've received awards for this as well. And we just couldn't be more proud of how you're thinking outside the box and keeping that work going. I do just have a comment. It's an observation, and this can be for you, but it's really for the rest of the EGCI and the rest of the county, in that your goals for workforce, I'm getting to the right, for your workforce are 65%, when all the other goals are down in the 32, 19, or 7. So the rest of the county can really learn from you and how you're working to get a diverse workforce. So I think it's just a good example that, you know, we really can get a workforce that reflects our community, and you're doing it better than the other departments, and I know they're working toward it, but their goals are significantly lower than yours, because I know they're working toward that. But I just want to acknowledge that your department is really setting a good standard, even though we're not exactly where we want to be there either, but you're setting a strong standard for the rest of the county to achieve in our diverse workforce. So thank you for that. And that's,
I do think it's important to note here that part of that was actually in the previous explanation, in that Workforce Solutions has a large portion of its budget that comes through state and federal funds, and therefore it's pass-through, so you have a lot of contractors and a lot more opportunities, whereas other departments don't have as much that is passed through. So, but the goals are wonderful and it's important, but it's kind of hard to compare apples to apples with other departments because of that pass-through funding.
I appreciate that explanation again, Madam Chair. I accept that. I just think it's still good, it's an awareness. Thank you for that.
Yes, very good. Okay, let's see, Commissioner Matas Castillo.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to echo your, congratulations on your great work and the continued work forward. I could go with the Energizer Bunny for sure. You have energy, but you're so creative and constantly doing more and pushing more. And I think not just your energy, but really your creativity is something to be celebrated. And so I really appreciate, let's hope we can get some more funding so we can continue to do this work if we could get some more money from the federal government, because it's really important. And I think that your creativity with the tech packs and getting access to services every step of the way, we continuously are, overjoyed with what you're coming up with, and your whole team working hard to get creative, to get to the members of our community that need your services the most. So I just want to say thank you very much for your work, and I look forward to see what comes in the next year ahead.
Thank you.
Let's see here, Commissioner Carter, and then Commissioner Fretham.
So again, thank you for being our Energizer bunny, but remember to recharge your battery. Okay, so let's add rechargeable to that and make sure that happens. Congratulations, so proud of you and others who have received this distinction of the St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce Leaders in Local Government Awards. Thank you for distinguishing Workforce Solutions in the manner in which you have. And again, congratulations. And we look forward, I think, to the program, which is on September 17th, I believe, so that we can celebrate with you. Take care.
Okay, Commissioner Fretham.
I will add on the hope for not just you, but everyone on your team and the rest of the teams presenting here today and the rest of the week for an opportunity for some rest and relaxation at some point. I know how hard all of you have been working and really appreciate it. And looking forward to seeing the impact of the experiment with the CARES dollars and seeing how that impacts outcomes. I think that is a real opportunity here to see that. And I'll just do a moment side deflection as a call-in in our ongoing work in our own intercultural development. And just note that I've heard that the term spirit animal is kind of looked down upon in terms of usage, and that as the sole member representing the Harry Potter generation, also acknowledging some transphobic comments of the author J.K. Rowling, but Patronus is a great alternative. So let's call out Patronus Energizer Bunny instead of spirit animal, and roll with that. Try that on and see if that works. So
Yeah.
Thank you, Ling, and everyone.
Yeah, thank you, commissioners. It is a hopeful time in the sense that we're doing a lot of different things, but I do want to recognize that, there's a lot of hardship going on in the community, and we have to stay really focused on that work. And I would just reference you to page 97, which we're talking about planning for the future, where we're writing about, things that are 5 or 10 years away. We need to accelerate toward these things, and in a way that COVID-19 has added a sense of urgency to support our communities. That is unlike, we use the word unprecedented way too much now, but it really is unprecedented. So thank you for all your support and your visionary leadership. Carrie and I often talk about, trying to deploy these dollars. There was a lot of hard about doing that, but also there was a lot of it that was easy in the sense that we know where our county's vision, mission, and goals are, and there's not a lot of, gray about that. And so that really helps us to be able to bring real things down to the, brass tacks on the ground work when we understand a clear vision from the leadership. So thank you for your time today.
Okay, and just to give an overview, first of all, I'd like to thank Commissioner Fretham for enlightening us on the Patronus Energizer Bunny. I think that is a wonderful recommendation, and I thank you for that. It's kind of fun, all the things that we are learning and trying to make changes in, even on a personal level, but obviously on a professional level as well. The theme that I heard from Workforce Solutions, both 2 days ago and today, is really about building trust with the community. And the prosperity for all, obviously, is a big part of what Workforce Solutions is doing. And my hope is that because we have such a strong process and program of activities going forward, that we will be able to prove just how important the funds are and how we were able to leverage them and hopefully be a model for getting additional funds. And maybe it's, you know, it's not necessarily CARES dollars, obviously, but there are other sources of grants that come from different parts of the federal government, especially, that we're going to have this experience to be able to show the positive outcomes that we've had. So thank you. I will double check here. No more comments, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Director Becker. Okay, I will now call on Joanna Berg, Deputy County Manager, for Service Team closing comments.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just want to take a moment and say thank you to everybody within EGCI and within the strategic team for all the work that got us here today. As I said at the onset, a real impressive body of work, and we are very pleased to share it with you today. And I want to thank you all, Commissioners, for your ongoing support to me and to everybody on my team. It means the world to us, and we wouldn't be able to achieve what we have without you. So thank you all, and have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Before adjourning this portion of the budget hearing, I would like to call on our CFO, Alex Kutza, for a few comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I just wanted to make a couple quick comments that came up throughout the hearing today. As many noted, there's quite a bit of uncertainty regarding state and federal funds and revenue sources and taxes going into 21, and that's something we're going to continue to monitor and may need to pivot throughout the year. Another thing I wanted to just bring up is there's a lot of one-time funding and fund balance use in the library area. Also something that I wanted to make sure was flagged. That's more something I'm thinking about going into the 22-23 budget and how we manage that looking forward. And in our last two presentations from Director Becker and Director Collins, they noted all the CARES funding that has been a way for us to really connect in community and provide services that we weren't able to before. And I don't think that's going to stop the need for those services around unemployment and small businesses in 21. And that's something at the beginning of January, I don't think that's going to go away. And we're going to have to look at what funding sources are out there, as was noted by the chair, and where we can invest in areas that need investment in through our own means also. The last comment I wanted to make was, it wasn't talked about today, but the new housing office that's coming this way will be in a similar situation where there will be needs going into 21 that will continue and that we need to pay attention to. So from a budget perspective, those are just things I'm thinking about and wanted to make sure I noted today. And I also learned a lot from everyone who presented, so thank you. In my new time here, I'm learning a ton about all the work that Ramsey's doing. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, well, we will add as follow-up the information that you just said you're going to provide to us. Okay, well, before I adjourn this session of the Budget Committee of the Whole, I want to remind everyone that this afternoon we will be hearing from the Information and Public Records Service Team, and that will begin promptly at 1 o'clock. So we are adjourned, and I will see you back at 1 o'clock. Thank you.